That's strangely close to Daniel Jones from the Giants. Daniel, is that you? Beat the Chiefs. Show me. If the Broncos and Russell Wilson can show me that they can beat the Chiefs, then I will start believing.
The crowd up. And so are this defense, and Kansas City won't snap the ball again. The Denver Broncos have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs.
Dave Montgomery on the Lions, former Bear, gonna make this his revenge game for sure. David Montgomery gets the touchdown that ices the game. No! And there's a flag. There's flag. There's flag. There's flag. There's flag. Snap. Hold. Kick.
Denver wins! Denver wins! Let's go!
They open. No!
What happened? Oh shit.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the only football podcast tonight. It's playoff football, baby. We're going to be talking about our our super wild card weekend predictions. We're going to get into all 6 games this weekend, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then we're going to get into what happened this week with all of the coaches who were fired, who mutually parted ways, who moved on to bigger and better things, and of course, the chives with Kyle. Let's get it. America is football. Football is America.
Football is America. And if you don't like it, you can kiss your candy ass at a particular moment in time. I don't give a damn.
They're calling
Oh my god.
No.
You love this.
It's 30 to 27.
No!
Chiefs win. Chiefs win 30 to 20.
Woo!
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time. Time for hope to be destroyed. Time for fandom to get out of control. Time for rookies to host playoff games, and time for the Steelers to Steeler. This is going to be an incredible, super wildcard weekend, and I hope that we have a bunch of fans tuning in today. Texans, Steelers, it doesn't matter. Just come on in, give a listen to us. My name's Kyle, and that's Rick.
I'm Rick, that's Kyle.
Damn it. As I wait for it, it's like I need it to at this point.
Got him.
And this is going to be a really, really fun weekend. We talked about last week, is this your favorite weekend? Is the divisional round? And I think a lot of people like Super Wildcard Weekend the most for the simple reason that anything can happen.
Mm-hmm.
Anything can happen in the wild card round, specifically in the playoffs, but there are teams that are riding the faith, belief. Cleveland riding with Joe Flacco, the Texans riding with CJ Stroud. There's a lot of teams that believe that they can go the distance, but of course, it's our job to break down who we think is going to be that team. So let's already kick this off. All right, here we go. We got the Cleveland Browns and Joe Flacco coming to Houston, Texas to take on CJ Stroud and DeMeco Ryans, who's coaching incredible job this year. Somebody was saying something about Gerard Mayo, and they said he's too young. And I said, really? DeMeco Ryans? Remember he's in the playoffs, right? How old is he? So yes, he is the exception. He's doing things that we're not used to seeing. We're not used to a first-time head coach having playoff success immediately. And we're not used to quarterbacks coming into the league as rookies and having the kind of success CJ Stroud is having. So I guess the question is, in a year of exceptions, why does the story have to end on Saturday against Cleveland? On the other side of the ball, you got a Cleveland Browns team who is really good, spectacular, in my opinion, from the beginning of the season, but then they lost their franchise quarterback, Deshaun Watson, season-ending shoulder surgery, and we all kind of just gave up because they started going with PJ Walker and other quarterbacks. The carousel started, and then they picked up their phone and they started dialing Joe Flacco. Hey, man, do you still play quarterback? We have a really good team, and if you can just come in and not PJ Walker, we might actually go the distance.
Yep.
And Joe Flacco said, say less, I will be there in a minute, and he definitely gave the Cleveland Browns that extra boost. Is that boost going to be enough to take this Browns team on the road and beat the Houston Texans at home in front of their home crowd? I can only imagine that the atmosphere is going to be incredible. The energy is going to be electric. And in the playoffs, that kind of energy, it means something. That momentum, they say it's a 3-point home field advantage. Well, in the playoffs, I think it's more like 4.5, 5. This is a huge home field advantage, but Cleveland playing off their defense, running the football, and Joe Flacco, don't make it sound like he's game managing. This guy's throwing for 300 yards and multiple touchdowns. Rick, who do you got in this game? And do you think that out of all the games this weekend that because I think this was one of the harder ones for me. Do you think this was one of the harder, more difficult games to predict?
100%. 100%, man. Because like you said, the Browns defense is spectacular. They have been great all season. That is one of the reasons that you had them in your top 5 earlier in the season than most people would have, right? I called you crazy. I called you insane. I said, fuck you for doing that, Kyle. We are no longer doing this podcast. I was just kidding. We're not doing that. But I called you crazy.
Almost got there.
Almost got there. But no, man, this was one of the harder ones because like you said, that home field advantage, you get that home field swing, and really a lot of the home teams are supposed to win, right? Like we go game through game, week through week during the regular season. And most of the times we're like, oh, well, if this is a hard one, we're picking the home team, right? Because of that swing. That to me is not the case for this game. I have got the Browns winning this game in Houston 23-17. Wow. Now, the Browns, talked about their defense. They are so good. They are number 1 in yards per game, but they are dead last in probably one of the more important parts of the game, and that's red zone scoring for the opposition. They are dead last in opposition red zone scoring. Now, look, does opposition get in the red zone a lot on the Browns? Not really when you really look at it, right? So can that be something that Stroud and the Texans, take advantage of? They get in the red zone. They are facing the worst defense in the red zone. They could punch it in a couple ways. They could use the running game. They could use Stroud. They could use the passing game. They could do all sorts of things to score in the red zone, but they have to get there first. And going against this top-ranked defense in the Browns, that's going to be a tough task. But you know that the red zone scoring for the Browns is there. That's a great option. Now, for the Texans, they have a strong rush defense, and one of the best parts of the game, even without Chubb for the Browns right now, is their rushing game. It's Kareem Hunt, it's Jerome Ford. Can the Texans shut them down? Absolutely. They're not huge playmakers. They aren't a Chubb. They aren't like a Jahmyr Gibbs or DeAndre. So they aren't those type of guys. They can absolutely shut these guys down. Now you make the Browns one-dimensional with the pass game. The Browns have passed the game 36, almost 37 times a game this season. But what makes the difference with that? The Browns own one of the best pass defenses in the NFL. And if you shut that down, you've already got the number 1 defense in yards per game. That's why I've got the Browns winning this game 23-17. Kyle, do you agree? Or are you going Houston? What are you doing? Because I see you over there. I see you scheming over there.
I got to see something really quick, and I was not planning on looking this up, but here we go.
Kyle's about to hit me with the stats.
Yep, you already know that we're getting in the weeds today. Why not? Why not? Okay. I just want to say, when CJ Stroud was having the kind of year he had, I came on this podcast and I said some bold things. And if you guys follow this channel, then you know that we don't clickbait headline things. We don't say things for saying that. Like there's a whole area on Twitter that is just about engagement, and they'll say the most off the wall shit. I never want to be like that. I want my opinions I want people to know that I really believe this. And when I say that CJ Stroud's the best quarterback that's come into the league since Patrick Mahomes,
wow,
that's not an exaggeration. That's not me being a victim of the moment. Look at the numbers and look at what he's done. Now, you mentioned Cleveland's defense, and this is what I wanted to remind everybody about. In the college football playoffs, when CJ Stroud was there, he had this team, I believe, with a 35-24 lead over number 1 Georgia, who was known for defense, right? Georgia's got a really nasty defense in the league, and CJ Stroud was able to throw the ball no problem because he's a winner, and that's what winners do. They overcome. They overcome obstacles. And yes, Cleveland's defense is really good, and they did end the season on a hot streak. And it's not that I don't believe in the Cleveland Browns, but I'm going with the Texans. I'm taking the Houston Texans. I'm taking DeMeco Ryans. I'm taking the home team. And you know I love the Browns. And I really do believe if they had Deshaun Watson, that they're Super Bowl contender this year. But they have Joe Flacco. And I do think, although Joe Flacco's played good so far, we have to keep in mind that, yeah, we all know that Joe Flacco got ice in his veins in the playoffs. Guys, that was 12 years ago. We need to manage expectations because it is Joe Flacco hasn't been in this position in a long time. And for us to just assume that he's going to go into this hostile environment and nothing's going to change, I don't know if that's entirely true. Now, the same could be said for CJ Stroud. We don't know what he's going to look like in a game like this. But I think that the Texans and CJ Stroud, specifically CJ Stroud, I think he's going to be the difference in this game. He's going to make those 1 or 2 plays that get because this is not going to be a blowout, right? He's going to make those 1 or 2 plays where not only do the Texans win, but everybody gets on board with CJ Stroud is an elite quarterback in the NFL. And I think that the Texans could even go beyond this round, but just keeping it at this round for right now, I'm taking the Texans to get the job done at home. And it sucks for the Browns because I do think that this is kind of a wasted year because they lost their quarterback. And if Joe Flacco does find a way to win this game, I would be surprised. And I know that Cleveland is the favorite going into this game. I believe they're 4-point favorites. I'm going to pull it up right now just to verify. But I don't understand why. This game is in Houston. And I think it's because, remember, the Texans were playing really good. And then CJ Stroud got hurt. And then he was out for 3 weeks. And we all just kind of forgot about the Texans entirely. Yeah. But CJ Stroud, before he got hurt, was throwing for 500-yard games, 400-yard games. So, yeah, he's not going to probably throw for 500 yards against his defense, but maybe he can throw for 275 and 2 touchdowns. Maybe he could do something like that. Yeah. Tank Dell got hurt, but Nico Collins has risen up to be a top 5 receiver this year. I'm not saying he's a top 5 guy right now, but he's definitely become a dynamic weapon. He's hard to cover. And CJ Stroud and him have a great rapport. I think they're going to come out. They're going to be in a rhythm. I don't think they're going to ask him to do too much like the Texans. It seems like they just kind of hang in there. And then when they need CJ Stroud to make that 1 or 2 plays per game to get him the win, that's what he comes in and that's what he does. And to me, this Texans team reminds me a lot of the Bengals in Joe Burrow's second year, where nobody gave him a chance. And they won, and they won, and they won, and they lost in the Super Bowl, but we all considered it a massive dub for Bengals Kingdom or whatever they call themselves. We were like, wow, that is awesome that Joe Burrow in only his second year, remember his first year, he got hurt.
Yeah.
So I think the Texans right now, I'm feeling a little bit of deja vu between Joe Burrow and this Texans team. Zach Taylor was a young head coach, new head coach. I think he was in his second year when they took him to the Super Bowl. DeMeco Ryans his first year. It's all just 1 year prior. But to me, this feels like a very similar team. The defense wasn't outstanding for the Bengals, but they were good enough to be in the playoffs. So I think that the Texans, they were my dark horse, like playoff team from the AFC to make a push all the way. And I'm not gonna change that in Wild Card Weekend against the Browns. Although I don't think this is gonna come easy. This is gonna be a very, very hard win. But CJ Stroud, he plays with so much poise. I would actually be shocked if he didn't look like himself in this game. Because last week he was playing for the playoffs as well, and we didn't notice any kind of decline in performance or anything like that. Like, he still seemed to me like CJ Stroud, and he was just getting back from injury. So I expect him to be a little bit better than he was last week, and I do expect him to throw for over 275 yards. Maybe he doesn't hit 300, but he's going to be in the high 200s. I think the Texans are going to be able to do a lot more than people are predicting. And it's because they have a franchise quarterback and an amazing head coach, and they're at home, for crying out loud. Texans aren't the favorite, but they're going to be my favorite for this game. And I am taking CJ Stroud to continue his very surprising and just spectacular rookie season. He could have been MVP if he didn't get hurt. He's going to go prove it again on Saturday.
And what's surprising too is, like, this is just unheard of, right? Like, you saw what Joe Burrow did. You mentioned it. It was his second season. It was under second-year head coach Zach Taylor. This defense, or this team of the Bengals, like, they got Jamar Chase too, right? Like, bring in Jamar. Let's get him in here because I threw to him in college, and they have a great connection. This seems to be a formula that teams can follow, going forward. I'm going to not only draft a quarterback, but I'm going to draft his number one wide receiver, or I'm going to draft a quarterback who's one of the best in his class. And we have a solid chance of going into the playoffs, whether it's a wild card, whether as a division winner, whatever. It's just, that seems to be like something that's in the works now. And you've said it before, these college guys coming out of college, their second, third year, they are NFL ready, and they are proving it in their rookie years. And CJ Stroud, again, 22 years old, going up against 39-year-old Joe Flacco. It was one of the funny things that I saw. I think DeMeco Ryans was talking about it. They had asked him, they're like, how does it feel going up against one of the oldest quarterbacks? And he's like, whoa. We're the same age. DeMeco Ryans like, we're the same age. We're both 39. Yeah, he's not old. What are you talking about? He's young. So it's funny, the levels to it. You got your CJ Stroud's head coach is 39 years old. CJ Stroud himself is 22, and he's going up against the quarterback on the other side who's also 39 years old, the same as his head. Like, it's just like, it's
that's wild.
It's such a funny thing to kind of think about if you're a Texans fan or a Browns fan. And
like
obviously
Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers, I think they were like the same age too.
And Sean McVay was younger than a lot of the veterans on the Rams when he took over. So it was like one of those questions, like, how do you do it, man? How do you get them to respect you? How do you get them to, and they've all got their ways. And, one of the other things too in this game is Deshaun Watson coming back to Houston. Houston Texans have not been in a playoff game, or I believe hosted a playoff game. Let me see. Let's see. I believe they haven't hosted a playoff game since 2019 with Deshaun Watson as their quarterback. So it's going to be nice for the Texans to kind of redo that, but they're also going to have their old quarterback there on the other sideline. So again, I'm going Browns. I think the defense, what they're going to do, is they're going to rattle CJ Stroud. They're going to make this outstanding quarterback throughout the regular season. Like, he's going to look good, but they're going to shut him down, I believe. And while he may have like a decent game, like you said, 250, 275 yards, I think Joe Flacco, who's able to come back from interceptions, from bad throws, missed receivers, he's just able to say, you know what? I'm still going to go long. I cannot be scared. This is a one and done game. We win or we go home. Why am I going to play scared? Why am I going to be conservative? There's nothing about Joe Flacco that tells me that he's scared of the moment. And that's exactly what he showed these last 6 games, 5 games, whatever it was with the Browns, man. I think they got a good one, and he's playing like it too. So, again, I'm taking the Browns to win this one in Houston.
I agree with that. And just to be clear, like, I bring up the Joe Flacco question, but I do think that Joe Flacco is playing with an insane amount of confidence right now, and I think that's what's working so well for him. And I think when you have a defense that good, that's kind of where that confidence comes from. Now, if CJ Stroud starts throwing the ball down the field and scoring touchdowns, is he going to be able to go out and play with that same confidence when it maybe goes to a shootout back and forth? Like, is he going to be able to pace? But that defense is really good, so it might not even be like that type of game where it goes back and forth. But I get what you're saying about Joe Flacco because there's a part of me, I watched him, what was it, Sunday? His last win, it was a big one. It was like a playoff clinching win.
It was the Thursday night game against the Jets.
Yeah, and he sat down with them after, and he was like just so happy. Like people forget, he was our quarterback for an entire year. And I watched him every press conference. I met him in person after a blowout. And he did not seem like even the same person. Like he looked like he was so much more joyful. He was so much happy just to be there. And he's like, I just can't believe that this is even happening to me right now. Like, I'm just lucky to be here. And I do think that that's the type of energy that is dangerous, right? Like, because he's playing with house money. And
and after a year with the Jets last season, you're totally feeling much better in this situation.
Yeah, way better. and he when you're happy and it just all translates very well to the field. Like at the quarterback position, if you're all messed up in your head, like we can see it on Sunday. Like Justin Fields going back and forth about trying to prove that he's not a running quarterback and I'm only going to throw it. And then he's like not running it. It's like, we can see that awkwardness. It really does manifest itself physically on the field. And I think Joe Flacco, he just seems so mentally sharp and just in a great headspace. That is the one thing that concerns me a little bit, but I do find myself kind of waiting for Cleveland or Joe Flacco to be Joe Flacco. And I hate to be like a Debbie Downer. I know it's a great story. I know everybody, I don't even know where that term comes from.
The Debbie Downer.
Yeah, no clue. I should probably look it up. But but I definitely believe like Joe Flacco at some point is going to he's Joe Flacco. Like if he was really this good, then why is he at home and not on the field until somebody calls? Like there's a part of me that really does believe that Joe Flacco, like it was a great run, right? It was a great run, but the way I look at it for my prediction is that great run is going to come to an end. And apparently it's going to surprise a lot of people because like I said, Cleveland is favored to win this game. They are this crazy. Houston's a home underdog against Joe Flacco. I mean, I'm still processing this. This is insane. And could you imagine if Deshaun Watson was in this game? Oh my
God. Yeah.
I mean, the script writers did their job, but Deshaun Watson needed to stay healthy, man. He needed to stay healthy. And I mentioned the script writers, they couldn't have done a better job. And I'm gonna click our next game if you're ready for it.
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. The script writers really did their homework. Tyreek Hill going back to Kansas City for a playoff game. And I'll say the Kansas City Chiefs are always a dangerous team to play in the postseason in Arrowhead. Somehow, Kansas City Chiefs are hosting this game, even though
Yep.
the entire year it felt like they're going to be on the road for the first time this year. And here they are.
Here we
in
go.
Arrowhead. Here we go. Somehow the chips have fallen the way they did, and Miami will be traveling to a game that's going to be, I think, the second coldest game since the 2007 NFC Championship. That was the game I went to with my mom. Brett Favre's last game, -40 with the wind chill. This game is going to be around -30. And I don't know if I told you this story, but when we went to that game, Rick, we tailgated. We had like some chili. You got to have chili when it's that cold. And then we walked to. At this age, I was like 12, probably. It was 2007. I was born in 94, so 6 + 7, 13. Yeah. So we walk all the way to Lambeau, the stadium, and we realized we forgot our tickets. So
no.
Yeah. So I told my mom, because it was so cold, I was like, you stay here, I'll run back and get the tickets. And I ran. When I got back, I got to the car, I got back to the stadium. When I got back, my face was so swollen, like my eyes were like almost closing. Just from the wind. I mean, I couldn't even talk. Everything was just so swollen. Like if you haven't been in this kind of cold, I know you have because you've lived in Illinois, but has the Dolphins? Because the Dolphins are 0-10 in their last however many games under a certain degree, and I maybe you'll have that stat specifically, but this has been concerning for the Dolphins, having to travel and not just into Arrowhead, not just into the cold, but playing a good team. This is like the trifecta of bad news for the Dolphins. They haven't beaten a good opponent. They don't travel well, and they don't play in the cold well. And that's why Kansas City found themselves as a favorite in this game, even though they have a large amount of flaws and reasons for you to not believe in the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm not going to waste too much time with my prediction. You went first last time. I'm going to tell you right now, this streak ends on Saturday. The Miami Dolphins prove they're a good team. Tyreek Hill has over 100 yards receiving, and the Miami Dolphins upset the Kansas City Chiefs. What is this switch that we think Kansas City is going to turn on? You don't think they would have turned it on week 10 or week 12 or week 15? We've been saying all year, Kansas City, they could turn it on at any point. When? I'm telling you, Travis Kelce wants to win so bad that if this was a matter of a switch that they possess the ability to turn on and off, they would have turned it on weeks and weeks ago. And I don't think in a negative 20-degree temperature game that all of a sudden everything's going to click because they're in the playoffs. I think that's a fantasy thought from fantasy land. And I understand that Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs and people love it. And he's fun to watch. He is fun to watch. But this, and it's no shot at what Mahomes has done. He's already probably the greatest quarterback ever to go down, period. And he's not even a quarter way done with his career probably.
Yeah.
So not a shot at him, but this isn't Kansas City's year. And we've kind of known that for a while. Week 1, they lost to Detroit. There was drops. And we thought, oh my God, is Detroit good? And they were like, no, Kansas City lost that game. And then we thought, okay, well, we'll wait for week 2. Week 1 was just a perfect example of what the entire season would actually be like. Kansas City's only in the playoffs because the AFC West couldn't pull together a 10-win season. So no, I don't have more faith in Kansas City at home than I have in a Dolphins team that is definitely going to come into this game hungry to prove the naysayers wrong. And that's right. My first 2 games are both underdog picks.
Wow.
I'm going with the Dolphins on the road.
Wow. Dolphins and the Houston Texans. Two dogs in a row for Kyle. Two dogs in a row for Kyle. All right. You were right. They are 0-10. The Dolphins are 0-10 in the last 10 games when kickoff temperature is below 40 degrees. Look, it's the Dolphins. They play in Miami. what the advantage they have of playing in Miami is that is the humidity, right? Like they can play in that all day. You go in Miami and you're from the Midwest, you're from the West Coast, you're from the South, the dry heat South, of course. You go into that humidity, it's over. Kyle and I have both lived in Florida for a good amount of time. Him obviously way more than I have. I know about that humidity. 5 a.m. humidity, 2 p.m. humidity, 10:30 at night humidity. It doesn't matter. It is there. It is there. Unlike John Cena, you can see that motherfucker. All right? That thing is present. So they have that advantage when people go to visit Miami. Now look, they lost out on a huge opportunity to host a game at home in the weather that they're used to at their home stadium with their fans chanting, with that swing that we talked about, right? They lost out on that opportunity. The Dolphins are going to make it 0-11.
Oh,
40 degrees or below at kickoff. I'm taking the Chiefs 27-24. Don't get me wrong, Kyle. This is going to be a close game, right? This is going to be a close game. Also, the Chiefs are in the playoffs. Call me when the Chiefs have lost a playoff game. Call me when they've lost. The Chiefs always.
You said that about the Broncos game. You were like,
and
when
yes,
the Russell Wilson proves
streaks are breaking.
And guess what game you were wrong about?
The Broncos and the Chiefs, 100%. And guess what? Here I am wearing this Broncos jersey going, I was wrong. So now the Dolphins have to prove the NFL wrong. Tyreek Hill is going to come in this game with revenge on his mind. They were not able to get the dub against them in the regular season in Germany. And you know Tyreek Hill wants this one badly in the playoffs, right? He wants this. Like you said, I think he's going to have a hell of a game. I think
he did go through a fire.
He did go through a fire recently.
It would be weird if that didn't affect him in some way. Like he left practice. Like those are real life things.
Those are issues. Oh yeah, 100%. That happened. You know, for most of us, something like that happens. We're out for a while. But Tyreek Hill is going to Kansas City in this 40 below game, 30 below game, whatever it was. And I think he might have a good game. Now, is there going to be snow? How cold is it? Will Tua be able to pass the ball? Is it going to be a Raheem Mostert? Is there going to be wind? Is it going to be a run heavy game? We're going to see what happens exactly, right? I mean, it's predicted. Who knows what game time actually shows us?
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I've got the Chiefs in this one. They are 100% already good with the elements there in Kansas City. They know what they're going up against. The Chiefs have the number 2 defense in the NFL, but they lead the league in drops. Of course, that has been the story of the Chiefs the entire season. Tony, Travis Kelce, these big names, right? Rice, like you have
he's been good for a rookie. Shade.
He's their number one. Great. Yeah, he's just not great this year, and it's a rookie. So you kind of dismiss some of those drops, but when it happens across the entire wide receiving core, you're like, okay, what the hell's the issue now, right? So while they're the second defense in the NFL, they lead the league in drops. That is never good. But does this become an Isaiah Pacheco, Raheem Mostert type of game? Does Patrick Mahomes dump it off 5 yards from line of scrimmage? You know, is the longest pass he makes or Tua, is that going to be 10 yards? You know, we have to look at what the weather is going to be at game time, because that's going to be a huge factor into what these offenses look like. Also, the Dolphins have been going through some injuries, right? Let's go back to the Dolphins here. They've been going through some injuries. Now they're hoping to have Waddle and Mostert back. Chubb is not going to be back for this game, but they upgraded their their defensive rush by signing Melvin Ingram, Justin Houston, Bruce Irvin to their active rosters. So they're hoping that one of those guys, they're hoping one of those guys does a monster game, because a lot of these names you don't really hear anymore, right? You've heard before, but you don't really hear anymore. So they're hoping that if they load their active roster with these type of guys, that they're going to be able to get to Mahomes, rattle him a bit. And does that affect the passing game? And even so, does the run game, is it becoming a run game heavy offense now? Can you stop the run with these guys? Is Isaiah Pacheco going to have a 50-yard game on 20 attempts? You know what I mean? Something like that. And now it's just a field goal type of thing, or with the wind, who knows what it's going to be like. But I still think the Chiefs, until the Chiefs lose in the playoffs, until you prove to me that they're, this is their 15th home game in the playoffs in a row, until they come in looking like shit and play like shit, I'm taking the Chiefs, and I am taking the Chiefs on Saturday night on the peacock.
On the cock.
On the cock.
Oh, that's controversial. Do you want to tap into that at all?
Not at all. Which fucking peacock. I'm gonna have to get a free subscription. But yes,
I give you 2 hours of free time too.
That's bitches.
Yeah, it's been a whole thing.
Those sons of bitches. I'm taking the Chiefs, man. Chiefs over Dolphins at home in Kansas City.
Tom Kynes, a senior meteorologist for AccuWeather, said that the wind chill could mean temperatures feel like they're between -20 and -30, which means that this is going to be one of the coldest games in NFL history. And I would almost go on a limb and say that the 3-9 prediction, I'm not sure if it's even that bold. I've been in games like this, and it's the football turns into a brick. It's hard to catch it. It's hard to throw it. They're going to definitely rely on their running game. And let me just remind everybody that Miami with Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert are literally a top 5 rushing unit, averaging 135 rushing yards per game. A lot of people get so caught up on the pass happy, Tyreek Hill and the speed. Don't forget that this team ground and pounds almost better than every team in the NFL between those two running backs, while the Chiefs are 19th in rushing yards per game. So if it does become a rush game, I got to say, I trust Miami's running game more than Kansas City's. And I also know that Vic Fangio, he's one of the great defensive coordinators in the league. If you remember last year for the Super Bowl, the Eagles actually hired him as like an advisor for that 2-week period, just to get his insights. Now he's going to be coaching up this Miami team against an offense that's already struggling. I do think it could be a low-scoring game, and no, I wouldn't be shocked if the Chiefs win, but I think Miami is going to be able to do enough to get this win, and I think it's going to be a huge monkey off their back. All of those records that we talked about, Jalen Waddle, Miami they're saying he might not be fully ready to return, but Waddle is going to be back in the lineup. So now they're not going to be able to just focus on Tyreek, which has been happening. And Tyreek's been working through a couple injuries of his own. And keep in mind that when it's this cold, injuries happen, like hamstrings get tight. It's hard to stay loose.
Ground is hard.
The ground is hard. So this could potentially, I'm not going to say 3-9, but I have no problem with like 10-13.
I was going to say the same thing. 13-10 game, something like that.
Yeah, something like that. So, and with it being -3 degrees and the wind chill being -30, that tells you that there's a lot of wind, not just kind of wind, because playing in the cold, and any player will tell you this, playing in the cold's not a big deal. It's when it's windy and cold. Yeah. That's when everything changes, and this is going to be windy and cold. And the Chiefs are definitely more comfortable with the weather conditions, but I'm going with Miami.
So given that, Kyle, what do you think? Let's say there's crazy winds, like you said, right? Give me, what do you think a good over under for passes on both sides would be for Mahomes and Tua? Are you thinking over under 15 and a half? Or are you thinking over under 20?
Over. Yeah,
over under 15.
I think there will be about 22 passes per team.
Per
around
quarterback.
22. I think it'll be maybe I think there'll be a lot of screens. There will be a lot of snap and throw to Tyreek Hill right away.
Yeah.
They're gonna, want to do things like that. To just get Tua in a rhythm because it's cold. And it seems like when it's this cold, every time your quarterback comes onto the field, he's cold, like metaphorically and physically. It doesn't matter if you went on a touchdown drive or not. Like if you're on the sideline for 5 minutes straight, by the time you get back on the field, it's like, oh shit, you know what I mean? Like
sucks.
it hurts to bend your arms, dude. This kind of weather, if you haven't been in it, it's just not what you think it is. Like I know some people probably, if you haven't been in this, you're like, it's just colder than cold. It's like, no, it's like, no, it's a weapon. It is literally a weapon. And it's the reason football is the toughest sport in the world, in my opinion, is because they play in these kind of conditions. This is when football proves that they're the toughest sport, when it's -30 and they're going to go out there for 3.5 hours. And the fans, you got to keep in mind, the fans might not be as loud as they would be if it's -30. They're going to be shivering. In Lambeau, we were going to the men's bathroom just to get body heat. Like, like literally.
My brother, I was going to say, my brother went to a Bears game in December, like late December. Snow, wind, freezing temperatures, would get a hot chocolate from like one of the stands or whatever, bring it back to his seat. By the time he got to his seat, it was frozen. He couldn't drink it. That hot chocolate turns to fucking ice, dude.
Crazy, dude. They had to stop at the game, the Giants game. They had to stop selling beer because it was freezing by the time they got to the seat, which is already cold, but it's still crazy to like take something and in a matter of seconds, it's frozen solid.
Frozen. Yeah.
Like that is crazy. I know I went week 17 Packers Vikings 2 years ago, and it was 2 degrees and then it dropped down to like -2. It was so cold. Jesus. Just -2 is so cold. Like painfully.
It hurts your face. It hurts your face.
I had 20 pair of socks on and I couldn't feel my toes.
Wow. Insanity,
through
dude.
Like boots, not steel toe. I'm not a rookie.
Yeah.
But dude, it's impossible. My brother, he spent like $300 in the Packers gift shop because it's the only place with heat. He just kept going to the gift shop. It was keep in mind that the fans might not be as rocking the way they normally would be. They're going to be cold. I'm sure they're going to get loud, but if there's any kind of like 2-3 series stretches where Kansas City has 3 and out and the Dolphins score and the fans are totally out of it, don't expect them to like rile themselves up in these conditions.
Expect them to be hugging each other, basically make it to try to get warm.
Like, oh my God, if they lose this game, I'm going to be so pissed off.
2 games in a row. Both Kyle and I have different predictions.
Yeah. Not scripted either. I did not know Rick's predictions going in. And here's one that we'll agree on. Maybe. The Buffalo Bills hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers. Buffalo, as you mentioned, they beat Miami. That's why Miami's in Kansas City and Buffalo gets to host the 7th seed Pittsburgh Steelers, who just kind of got in by other teams losing. And they won enough games. They put themselves in this position, but it doesn't look good for the Steelers right now. And the one thing I will say, if you're a Steelers fan, is do not lose hope in this game. Yeah. And Mike Tomlin is a better coach as an underdog as he is as a favorite. This is kind of his bread and butter. A playoff game on the road, 10-point underdog. That's kind of what Mike Tomlin does, man.
That's how he strives in this league.
Yeah, that's how he strives in this league. And because of that, I'm not really predicting any blowouts here. But the Bills are a much better team, I think. The story of the Bills is great. They end up 5-5 after losing to the Broncos on Monday Night Football. They end up firing their offensive coordinator. Apparently, the season was lost. And it wasn't. They just had a couple speed bumps during the season, and they actually heated up at the perfect time. It's better to be cold in the beginning and heat up now versus the other way around, like the Eagles, right? So I think this is kind of all working out for Buffalo. We mentioned how Buffalo's going to win it in a year where it's just kind of weird. Like, this is the perfect scenario for Buffalo to go on a run here. And at home, Bills Mafia, tables are going to be broken. It's going to be an insane environment. And I think the Steelers are going to be ready, but no TJ Watt. They're going to have to really rely on Najee Harris and Jalen Warren. Yeah, they're going to have to rely on them to do a lot of the heavy lifting, which they have been running really well. They're one of the best backfields. But when you look at the other side, Buffalo can do a lot more. They can run the football well. James Cook's having one of the best seasons for a running back in the league. They can throw it. Kincaid's emerged as a top tight end. Yeah. And Josh Allen is not afraid to run the football and pick up 60-plus yards per game. I'm taking Buffalo at home to get this win, and this might be the, I guess, least surprising pick of all of the games.
Yeah, it really is. And I have to agree. I have to go Buffalo Bills at home as well. This is going to be a cold, nasty, disgusting Buffalo big game. Buffalo Bills game. Bills Mafia game. This is what it's going to be. It's going to be disgusting. It's going to be hard. It's going to be fucking, there's punches thrown. All sorts of cool stuff is going to happen. I've got the Bills winning 21-10. Look, the Steelers are in this playoffs. But let's be honest, man, they got lucky getting in here. They were able to win the games they were supposed to, but the game they were supposed to win, week 18, the Ravens sat everyone that is a starter. Lucky Steelers, but they won the game. It didn't matter. A win is a win. That's who you play. And how the other team plays is not up to you. You won. You got in. Good for the Steelers. And real quick, shout out to our boy Liam, who's going to be at that game. Liam, make sure to hit us up on X with some pictures of you there.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah, that's awesome
so
to go there.
Fucking cool. Nothing like going to your favorite team in the playoffs at home. Awesome.
Exactly. And look, both of these teams, the Steelers and the Bills, they have some similarities, Kyle, right? Both of these teams fired their offensive coordinators. And what happened? Their offenses seemed to come alive a little bit. Both, because of that firing of the offensive coordinator, their running game has just elevated ever since that happened. Najee Harris and Jalen Warren and James Cook in Buffalo. Both teams won the games they needed. Like I just said, the week 18 Ravens win that the Steelers got, and 5 in a row for Buffalo. And both were not. No one was expecting these teams 7 weeks ago to be in the playoffs. Nobody. We had them out. We had them. They need to do this. They need to do that. They were out of it. They were out of the playoffs. No good, right? But the Bills, the way they've played 5 games in a row, taking the AFC East on week 18 from the Miami Dolphins. They're playing with a huge, huge purpose, a chip on their shoulder, something like that. Whatever they got, they want to win. They want to get to the Super Bowl and win. Josh Allen has been playing better, not turning the ball over as much. James Cook in the running game has been outstanding. The defense has been suffocating, scoring touchdowns. They've just been coming down on teams on the defense. McDermott, 3-1 record versus Mike Tomlin. Insanity. Now, the Steelers, without their boy TJ Watt, which you mentioned, they are 1-10 without TJ Watt. You couple that with the way each team has been playing. You add the fact that the record speaks for itself, McDermott versus Tomlin. You add Mason Rudolph at quarterback. They are really like he's been doing a really good job at not turning the ball over. I think he's got 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions as he's taken over, or 3. But you almost see that you're not doing much. You almost see that he's game managing, and you can make the Steelers one-dimensional in the run game, and you can isolate that run game. And now what? They're going to have to depend on the arm of Mason Rudolph to get through to win. Now, the Steelers have gone 7 years without a playoff win, which is the franchise record since 1970.
Wow.
And they're going to go 8 years. I've got the Buffalo Bills winning this one at home, man. It's simple. I just, I don't think that the Steelers have a ton going for them in this game, unfortunately. Of all the things I mentioned, again, the running game is good, but their defense is going to suffer without the NFL sack leader there. And the record without him speaks for itself too. So Buffalo Bills going to take this one. Kyle, who has the better game? Are we talking the Najee Harris, Jalen Warren duo? Or are we talking James Cook, first 1,000-yard rusher for the Bills since who was it? LaShawn McCoy back in 2017.
LaShawn McCoy, yeah. I'm gonna go. Who's gonna have more rushing yards?
Maybe rushing yards, maybe just a better overall game.
I'm gonna go with James Cook. James Cook's playing at a high level. Like Najee's playing really well these last couple of weeks, and I understand how people become biased because of fantasy football. Quite frankly, they draft a guy, he doesn't pan out, and sometimes I'll talk to people about Najee and oh, he sucks. I'm like, no, he doesn't.
He really doesn't. Matt Canada was out the door.
Yeah. The last couple of weeks he's been on one, and when he's resting, Warren is going to eat too. Yeah. But to me, the Bills are the more balanced attack. They have Stephon Diggs. They have a good tight end. Josh Allen. I expect a lot of RPO in this game. A lot of who's going to run it. Is it Cook? Is it me? Well, it's going to freeze the linebackers because you have to respect Josh Allen as a ball carrier. Yeah. And just with all of that, like the Steelers are going to run the football. Like they're good at running the football, but like what else? Is Deontay Johnson going to go off in this game? No.
Yeah, exactly.
Is who's the other Pickens? George Pickens. Is he going to go off? No, he won't. And yes, they both should, but they won't because that's kind of the way this year's gone for the Steelers. I don't expect a huge game from George Pickens all of a sudden here in a playoff game that they're only in because another team lost. And this, but Buffalo, on the other hand, I think that if they can find a way to convert in the red zone, that would be huge because for 2 weeks, Buffalo has just shit the bed when it counted the most. They had 3 trips inside Miami's 20-yard line and ended with no points. So if the Steelers can play good red zone defense, Buffalo could fumble the ball metaphorically themselves. And that is like a key area for if you're a Steelers fan, if they can stop Buffalo in the red zone, because Buffalo will be in the red zone and they will probably be in the red zone often. Yeah. But when they get down there, how are the Steelers going to hold up defensively against this team? And we know that the Bills are not above losing in the playoffs at home. They got blown out last year to a Cincinnati team. And this Steelers team is not that team. So I'm taking the Bills. And to answer your question, I think James Cook is going to have the better game because they're going to be able to stay way more balanced offensively than the Steelers are going to be able to. Like you said, it was your first point. If the Bills can just stop the running game, just sell out, make them beat you with Mason Rudolph's arm, because he won't. He won't. Like,
exactly.
He's good for like 1 or 2. Like, oh shit! Like,
shit, that was big. Yeah.
But Josh Allen is a top 4, top 3 quarterback in the NFL. Just don't overthink it. Buffalo wins this game, and I actually think this could be a game where Buffalo wins by more than 10. But I would predict the Steelers to cover. But no, I would not be shocked if Buffalo wins this game like 28-7. Not at all.
And I'm going as well with James Cook as far as who's having the better running game. And also, I think he might be a big factor too in the passing game, right? Like kind of what you said with the Dolphins Chiefs game. This game may be something similar to that. They're in Buffalo. The weather's going to be shit. Hey, let's throw it to James Cook on a screen, a dump off, a quick little 2-3 yard, and watch him go. Watch him be the playmaker that he was in that stretch of the 5-game win streak that the Buffalo Bills had. So I think overall too, when we're talking about all 3 of those running backs, Jalen Warren, Najee Harris, and James Cook is probably going to have the better overall game, not only in the run game, but also in the pass game as well.
Do you think Cook gets in? Like, do you think he scores like 1 touchdown at least, multiple maybe?
I'm going 1. The only reason I'm going 1 is because I know Josh Allen is probably going to rush for 1 as well. And if not 2, he's definitely going for 1. He might even throw for 1 is what I'm thinking with that.
And I don't have this for every game, but I'm going to do it for this game. Storyline to watch, which is not a storyline. This is my storyline that is not yet a storyline. Remember what happened last season. Buffalo got blown out at home, and before they could even have a team meeting, Stefon Diggs left the facility. Just left. Yeah. Stefon Diggs is very easy to rattle. And he's very, very. I don't think he's selfish, because there were games where he had over 100 yards and a touchdown, and he was just as mad because the team lost. That, to me, that shows that he cares about the team. But sometimes I think his emotions get the best of him. If the Steelers are able to take out Diggs for the first half of this game, Diggs might take himself out for the second half. So
I love that. I do love that, because I was listening to a podcast earlier that were saying Stefon Diggs just has bad body language. He lets his emotions get the best of him, and he shows it, right? He wears his heart on his sleeve, which is a good and bad thing, right? In Stefon Diggs' case, we focus on the bad with him, because a lot of times he's hugging with Josh Allen, he's talking with, but the big things that we look at, like football media looks at, is like you said, he walked out before the team met. He's looking like pissed off on the sideline, screaming at Josh Allen, screaming at his coordinator. Yeah. And unfortunately, Stefon Diggs is a guy who wears his heart on his sleeve. But God, if you're a Bills fan, you're like, please, dude, don't do that. Just stop.
Yeah,
just
be cool.
Just be cool. Be cool, calm, and collected, right? Because like you said, he could be rattled in this, and I love that. I love that point that you made.
Yeah, and we'll I think with this game, probably less of a factor. I think we could agree on that. But moving on, that's something definitely to watch, because the track record is definitely there.
100%.
All right. Our next game, we got the Green Bay Packers at the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas hosting a playoff game because they proved that they were the best team in the NFC Beast. Thought we might do that one together. So
in the NFC Beast.
you hit the button. Top 5. Yeah, dude. The Cowboys are insane this year. CeeDee Lamb's probably the best receiver in the league right now. Dallas fans are going to be in this game, dude. The place is going to be rocking. It almost feels just a little bit different than every year where the Cowboys are going to let you down in the playoffs. I feel like we're not expecting a letdown this year. I think we're expecting the Cowboys to advance. And I don't know if it has to do with the Eagles regressing or the Cowboys with play calling under Mike McCarthy, or maybe it's the 40 points at home per game. But the Cowboys are clearly the second or first best team in the NFC, and they are just in a really great situation here. Now, on the other end, Jordan Love, he's thrown 30. Last time I checked, it was 30. It might be like 32 now. 30 plus touchdowns. He's second in the NFL, and the guy he's playing is number 1, Dak Prescott. So Jordan Love in this offense, they found a way to move the ball with Reed. Jalen Reed. I don't know if Christian Watson is ruled out of this game or not.
I think he's like day-to-day right now before the game. Yeah.
So day-to-day right now. But CeeDee Lamb has 1,749 yards of production this year. And I mentioned this a couple times during the season. Matt LaFleur, what he's done with Jordan Love is nothing short of remarkable. From what we saw in the beginning of the season, what we saw in the middle of the season, and the product on the field now, you can see the transformation. And that's not just Jordan Love. That has a lot to do with Matt LaFleur. This Packers team's playing good football right now. It's just they're playing a really tough opponent in the Dallas Cowboys. And it's one of the reasons. What did I just drop my? Sorry, I dropped my bait. It's one of the reasons. It's one of the reasons that this game is. I think the Cowboys are huge home favorites on this one. Everyone going that way because the Cowboys are just a dominant football team. What is this going to look like? Matt LaFleur traveling with a a young quarterback. I want to say rookie, but he's not a rookie, but it feels like he's a rookie.
Yeah.
But there's just a lot of unknown. And I think one thing that we do know is that the Cowboys have a way of not showing up for moments when it matters the most.
Oh, no!
Give me the Packers at home, baby. Or on the road. Give me the Packers on the road. Jordan Love gets into a shootout with Dak Prescott and cements his legacy as the trifecta. You had Brett Favre, the Holy Spirit. You got Aaron Rodgers, God,
Father.
And now here we go, the Son of God, Jordan Love coming out to take what is his and say, I am the Packers next 20 years and remind everybody that Green Bay is back on the map. Why not? This is the second most passing touchdowns, and they're going against a Cowboys team with the most. I think this is a high-scoring game. It's going to be in a weather-controlled environment. Give me the Packers 38-35.
Wow. Whoa. 38-30. Kyle's not fucking around in this
I'm not
game.
fucking around with this one.
He's not fucking around. Wow, Kyle. 38-35. Woo! I gotta fan myself after that. After that, those last few seconds from Kyle's prediction.
Give me the Packers.
I fucking love it. And you know, if you guys are new to the channel, Kyle's number 1 is Denver. My number 1 are the Bears, and his number 2 is the Packers. To my absolute sadness,
it just happened to work out that way.
It just happened to work out that way. Thank God he's a Broncos fan first. Look, the Packers' domination of the Cowboys too. They've won 9 of the last 10 games against the Cowboys, and I think that's playoff games. I have to be 100% playoff games. Yes, 100%. It's just been it's been real, man. The Cowboys lose to the Packers on a ridiculous clip, almost and nowhere near as ridiculous as the Bears do. Yeah, that was me giving myself a quick little fucking gah. We got our boy Bill in it. What's up, Bill? We're going over Packers Cowboys right now, and look, again, the Cowboys are just horrible against the Packers in the playoffs, right? When it matters. But to me, this Cowboys team is so much different. I want to talk about Dak Prescott and his league-leading touchdowns. I want to talk about CeeDee Lamb and the way they've been playing, and the fact that they have a home game with winning the NFC Beast is just huge for them, and it's something we talked about getting towards the end of the regular season. It is huge for them to be able to get this home game in the playoffs. Micah Parsons in that defense has been ridiculous at home. They are just outscoring their opponents by a wide margin, and we talked about that, right? Like, it is ridiculous what they've been doing. But this is a playoffs, man. This is when shit gets real, when people understand that if we don't win, we are literally going home and there's no more football for the rest of the season. We have to win 4 games to get to raise that trophy and to call ourselves champions of the NFL. So it's just stakes are raised. Everybody's blood pressure is up and everybody is so hyped for football. That's why I'm going Cowboys to win this game at home. I'm going 28-14 Cowboys. Now look, you're saying, why are the Packers only scoring 14? You've got Jordan Love, who gives me shivers to even think about how good he is, who threw, 18 touchdowns to only 1 interception in his final 8 games of the regular season. If that isn't domination from the quarterback position, I don't know what is. There's a reason he's at 32. There's a reason he's second in the league right now. It's because he threw 18 fucking passes in the last 8 games. What was he doing the prior 9 games? He only threw what is that? 14? He threw less than what he did. He has been on an absolute tear. Aaron Jones in that running game. Yeah, Aaron Jones in that running game has been amazing. The defense, LaFleur has taken over a ton of play calling for the defense, and that defense has looked amazing for the Packers these last 2-3 weeks in the regular season. But I still think that defense for the Cowboys, what the Cowboys have done at home, Dak Prescott's record against the Packers, Dak Prescott's postseason debut, he lost against Aaron Rodgers and his head coach, Mike McCarthy. That's who he lost to. So he can at least get some revenge against the Packers here. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think Dak Prescott is going to throw for 3 touchdowns, 350 yards, 2 to CeeDee Lamb, 1 to Brandon Cooks. And you got Tony Pollard who's going to rush one in. And look, both of these quarterbacks, like I said, are playing outstanding. It may have to come down to who has the better running game between Aaron Jones and Tony Pollard, right? If the air game is so good that they are neck and neck, and my prediction is way off, who's got the better running game? Can Tony Pollard break out, or can Aaron Jones and even A.J. Dillon, can they break out? The defenses are playing at a high level. The Dallas Cowboys defense is clearly at a higher level, but look, I've got the Cowboys winning at home, getting one on the Packers. This is going to be one of the best games. This is going to be one of the best games too of this wild card. No, not because I'm a Bears fan at all. And not because, your full family is Packers fan. Not at all. You guys should see our postseason predictions, by the way.
You should see our preseason predictions when I said Jordan Love is going to be more of the same. I made a rap song about it. I said, imagine if Love is just more of the past. We're missing something, just one little thing about this game, and it's probably the most important part. You said it's going to come down to who runs the football better. I'm gonna make a bold prediction right now. The reason the Packers are gonna win this game, and look, I was gonna go Cowboys until I couldn't sleep at like 3 a.m. and I went, oh shit!
Oh no, what happened? What happened?
The reason the Packers are gonna win this game is not because of anything the Cowboys are gonna do, kind of, and it's not gonna be because of anything the Packers do on the personnel front. Okay? The Packers are going to win this game because they are going to out-coach Mike McCarthy, who was replaced in Green Bay by Matt LaFleur. Replaced. Which tells you already, I think Mike McCarthy's a great play caller. He's proving it this year. But so is the guy on the other end. This is definitely a revenge game for Mike McCarthy, and it happened last year. Guess who won? The Packers won. In that game, it wasn't even like Green Bay was not even having a good season. I think they were under 500 when they played. And it just, Mike McCarthy, man, his team was not disciplined. They had too many just pre-snap penalties, stuff like that.
Mental errors,
That is what's going to happen in this game. The Cowboys are going to be outcoached by Matt LaFleur. And if you need an example, I'll give you one just a week ago. They were playing the Lions, and the Lions, they lose that game. But we won't get into the 2-point conversion, right? But why did that even happen? Well, let's go back to, 3rd and 15? And the Cowboys decide to throw the football and try to convert the first down instead of running 40 seconds off the clock, pretty much limiting any hope that Detroit is going to go the whole distance of the field, score and go for 2. If they run the football and take all the clock down, Detroit doesn't even have this opportunity. Mike McCarthy gift wrapped this opportunity by calling a pass play when it was way more valuable to take 40 seconds off 2 minutes than to give the Lions that 2 minutes. And that's just one example where if that 2-point conversion, if that bullshit penalty didn't happen, the Cowboys lose that game. I don't know how many more of those moments are going to happen for the Cowboys. And that's kind of, I'm like, Packers, Cowboys, and then I go to the coach and I go, Mike McCarthy is going to have a couple questionable calls in this game. And then he's going to get in his head about his own calls because he understands the pressure. And it's going to get worse. I think it's going to spiral in a way. And I do think Matt LaFleur is going to best him, his successor. And that is a huge storyline in this game. It's one thing to be like, Mike McCarthy is, how is he going to coach in the playoffs? We have to ask ourselves, how is he going to coach against his former team? That is much more of a valid concern than the latter, because we already saw McCarthy in the playoffs last year. It's not too much different. They didn't look great, but it wasn't too much different. But Dak didn't look good. And we cannot move off of the Cowboys without talking about Dak, because this has been a season where Dak has reinvented himself. He went from the most interceptions to the least interceptions. It's like happened, I think, only once in NFL history. Some crazy ass stat. But essentially, it just means Dak fixed himself. Like, Dak is fixed, and now he's playing at an MVP level. If it's not him, it's Lamar. And do we expect this to carry on into the playoffs? I think there's a lot of valid concerns about Dak Prescott. And Rick, you picked the Cowboys to win this game, so this has got to be a question that you ask yourself. But I imagine that you're willing to say that Dak doesn't Dak in this game, that Dak actually comes out and we get more of what we've been getting all season long. This new reinvented Dak Prescott is gonna play turnover-free, great football. Is that what you're predicting at home?
I am 100% thinking that, because what did he say coming into this season, right? You said it. He's like, I'm not going to throw double-digit interceptions or whatever it is he said, right? That's exactly what happened. He went from most to least. And look, the Dallas media, the Cowboys are America's team, right? Like, they are in the spotlight season in and season out because of that moniker that they were given, right? No matter what, whoever's the quarterback, whoever's the head coach in Dallas will have intense scrutiny. And he was able to surpass all that and lead his team to the NFC East title, like a home game, all that stuff. So I think he's going to play his absolute best game of the season in this wild card weekend, and maybe even going forward, right? I 100% trust this version of Dak, but man, you gave the biggest Achilles heel in this argument, and that is Mike McCarthy. That is 100% correct, Kyle. Coach-wise, I'm taking LaFleur all day over Mike McCarthy, because McCarthy is good for one huge fuck up or one huge almost fuck up. And it brings up a great question, but I want to get to Bill's question here first, because we talked about it a couple weeks ago. And Packers fans have been talking about this quite a bit. If the Packers lose, and maybe if my prediction is correct, they lose by 2 scores. They lose by 14, 20, 21 points, something like that. Does Joe Barry, the defensive coordinator right now, keep his job, Kyle?
I'm going to say yeah. First off,
surprising.
A lot of young talent has emerged for the Packers. Like, this whole entire run, we focused a lot on Jordan Love, but the defense has been able to get turnovers. Just a lot of young players have stepped up and played a solid role in this team. I think the Packers defense is better this year than they were last year. And I don't have all of the stats in front of me. I know the defense was not terrible last year because the offense sucked, and the Packers still won like 9 games. So yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I think that this is the kind of season where the Packers can build on it. And I'm not a fan of tearing anything down when you're in the playoffs. People were saying the same thing about Vance Joseph, because the beginning of the season and we missed the playoffs. And it's like, no, we got to build. We can't tear down while we're trying to build. And I understand the concerns, and I do think like it could happen if the Packers lose the way you're saying. Like, if they lose by 21 or something, there's going to be pressure from the front office of Green Bay to make that kind of a move. But do I think it's the right move? And well, that's a whole different question than what Bill's asking. Yeah. I'm going to say if they lose by more than 14, then yeah, he probably gets fired. But I wouldn't if it were up to me. And I see he said right here, Daniel Jones went from most to least interceptions last year. But I was just reading about this on our last Cowboys game. I remember I forget what the stat was, but it was, I'm pretty sure it was something about him going from the most picks to the least picks. And I remember them having another player on the list, but I must be remembering that stat wrong, because I think that player was from like the 70s who was on the list. Okay. It was somebody I didn't even know. It was like, he would be the first to do this. I think it might be lead the NFL in touchdowns and have the least amount of picks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's a great stat to have.
Exactly. It's totally different because you can throw 0 picks and still only throw for 7. It's not really that much of an accomplishment if you're not throwing like Dak is for like almost 40.
And this kind of brings up a good question too, because with Dak, doing what he did this season, the huge improvement, the vast improvement that he made from last year, and Cowboys fans love it. How much of that was Mike McCarthy taking over as the offensive play caller versus the guy who's at the Chargers right now, right? Like, I think while Dak is the one throwing those passes, right, Mike McCarthy's offensive play calling, his scheme has to do something with it, right? Like it's gotta be. Like, there was a huge change made in that offense. Wasn't the defense. Dan Quinn is still killing it, but the offense made a huge change, and that was Mike McCarthy taking over. So how much of that do you weigh on how much improvement Dak has made this season versus last?
I think it's both. It's kind of like the Belichick Brady conversation. Like, is it Belichick or is it Brady? I don't like to answer these type of questions because there's no way to answer it without taking credibility away from one of the people.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think both have kind of come hand in hand, like Mahomes and Andy Reid. Mike McCarthy's clearly a better play caller than Kellen Moore, which was shocking. Yeah. Which was shocking because when Kellen Moore went to the Chargers, we were all like, "Oh shit,
they're about to go ham!"
Oh shit, Kellen Moore, Justin Herbert. Oh my god, he's got a quarterback now.
Yeah,
we couldn't have been more wrong about all of it. Like all of it.
Yeah,
the Justin Herbert going off, Dak sucking, all of it was off. And and now look, 1 year later, there's going to be a new head coach in LA, and he's going to fire all of them. And Kellen Moore is going to need a new place this offseason. Head coaches don't just come in and keep the same, that's very rare. I don't even know if that's ever happened. Like, oh, I like these offensive coordinator, I'm not going to, usually a head coach is like, I'm going to build my staff. Everyone's fired. And that's just the way it goes. Yeah. So the fact that Mike McCarthy is hosting a playoff game with the league leading points per game, yards per game, all of that, and Kellen Moore doesn't even have a job, I think tells you how much of a difference. But yeah, like Mike McCarthy is definitely a good play caller, but how is he going to be situational football? That's what I'm looking at.
As a head coach.
Yeah. 2-minute drill. And I have the same concerns about Kyle Shanahan in these big moments. Like, you see during the season, let's say there's a minute left, and then we're going to go to halftime. They have 3 timeouts, and you see them run the ball for 3 yards and crush the clock. And it's like, wait, what are you doing? Like, if Mike McCarthy doesn't completely just change his situational football and start getting overly conservative and just getting in his head too much, let's say he runs it twice and it goes for no yards, and then they throw an incomplete pass at 3 and out. Then the Cowboys get the ball on their second possession, and Mike McCarthy's like, we're going to have to throw it on first, second, and third because we just had a 3 and out. Like, how much is he going to get in his head when things don't go perfectly? Because don't think that everything's going to go flawlessly. This is a playoff game, and the Packers have their number. So that to me, that is like the valid concern. It's not even the play calling. It's situational football. 2-minute drill, less than 5 minutes in the game, timeouts, pre-snap penalties. Are the Cowboys going to show up like they have all season, or are we going to see playoff Cowboys lose to the head coach that they hired over Mike McCarthy, Matt LaFleur? This is going to be a fantastic game.
I 100% agree, and I know we want to move on to the next team, but real quick question, Kyle. If Mike McCarthy looks dumb, like, let's be honest, if he looks dumb in some situational play callings like you're saying, is he going to be the coach of the Dallas Cowboys next season?
Yes. I already knew. Yeah, there's no shot in hell. No, you can't.
It's tough to fire a guy.
Yeah, you can't, man. What are you going to do next year? Try to make sure his replacement leads the NFL in yards, and it sucks, but there's no sense in getting rid of someone if there's not a better option available. Right? It's one thing to move off of a guy. It's another thing to know that there's not a better option out there than the guy you have. And I think that's kind of what happened with with Mike Vrabel or maybe even Pete Carroll. Like maybe there's a coach available that they were like, this guy's not going to be available because whoever that guy is, only they know. But they were like, sorry, Pete, you got to go because there's a coach available that we want, and he won't be available next year when you decide to walk away. And
I was going to say, and you said it best. I was going to say, and you said it best. Sorry to interrupt, but I was going to say, you said it best. How can you move off of a head coach who took over play calling and who just completely flipped your quarterback into most touchdowns, least interception, a ton of points at home, of a dominant defense? Like, how do you move on from that? Because he fucked up in the playoffs. Yes, playoffs are the spotlight. They are huge. And if you lose to the Packers again, it's going to be an even bigger spotlight, and the lights are going to be brighter. But it's just so tough to move on. It is so tough to move on from a coach like that. I wish the Bears were losing like that in the playoffs, and I wish the Bears were getting in the playoffs with a quarterback who led the league in touchdowns and led the league in least interceptions. Like, amazing. Like, I'll lose in the playoffs for that, sure, because I know the consistency is gonna be there.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. And not to make it about Denver, but in 2013
on this episode,
Manning threw 55 touchdown passes. He was averaging like 5 a game. He had 7 week 1. This was a historically great offense. It literally, it holds up against any offense you could pick. The Rams in 2000, it doesn't matter. They're there. And what happened when they got into the Super Bowl? They lost 43-8.
Yeah.
So the difference, though, Dallas Cowboys have a good defense, but it's just an example of how sometimes, like, you got these high scoring teams in the regular season, and then they get into the playoffs and they just splutter and put up 21 points or 17. And you're like, what happened? What happened
to the 40 points?
Yeah, 8 points in the Super Bowl. We were averaging 40.
Yeah.
How do you get 8? And because Seattle had a good defense. So maybe a bad example because the Cowboys have a good defense, but we have seen it many times where the league's best offense gets into a playoff game, and all of a sudden they look like the league's mediocre offense, and they don't even look like the league's best offense. And I don't know. There's not really an explanation for that. It's just when you're the best at anything, there's a lot of pressure, and anything underneath what they have been performing like all season is going to feel like a letdown. But it's really hard to consistently perform the way that they have been performing all season long, especially in a playoff game. So, man, this is going to be probably, this is the game I'm looking forward to the most out of all of them. There's just always been something about Packers Cowboys, like the look of it. I don't know.
The uniforms, the history.
Historical. Like I love it. I love this game so much. And I'm so glad that the chips fell this way, because it seems like every playoff game is just spectacular. The Bills game maybe the least of all, but even so, the Bills Steelers is going to be an incredible game too. It's playoffs, man. All right. Are you ready to move on to our next game?
Let's do it.
All right. Once again, the script writers are undefeated. Jared Goff is going to face his former team at home. I made a video about it. It's on YouTube. Go ahead and check it out. I had a comment. Somebody commented. He was like, "Are you sure this is Rams Lions?" Yeah, he's like, "There's a lot of Lions in here." And he's like, "Hey, jackass!" I didn't say that, but you guys won the Super Bowl 2 years ago, right? Like, the Lions haven't been here in 30 years. Like, yes, the Lions are the better story, 100%. The Lions, they came into this season with playoff expectations, and they had the expectations to win the NFC North, and they did both. And yes, at times the Lions, their stock kind of fell when they lost to the Ravens, and I think they had a loss to the Seahawks in there. They almost lost to the Chargers, then they lost to the Bears after, and I was like, what's wrong with the Lions? And then they decided to get right against my Broncos. And then they continued. They continued to win.
He's not mad about it at all.
No, not at all. But I look at this Lions team, and I think, man, I love everything about this team. I love that they look like the city that they play in. Like, it is like a blue collar, hardworking factory, cold, tough, grit, callous, just buzzwords.
Yeah. Like, buzzwords,
forward,
toughness, gritty.
Yeah, it's all of that. And on the other side, here comes the Rams with one of the best play callers in the National Football League, with two weapons that would be wide receiver ones on any team, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua, who's been outstanding. And not only that, they're running the football with Kyren Williams better than almost any team's running the football these last couple of weeks. The wise guys are in on the Rams. Not they're saying the Rams will probably win, but they're taking the Lions +7. There's a lot of big money coming in on the Rams because Dan Campbell hasn't been here before. Sean McVay has. There's a chance that Jared Goff has a bad game, whereas Matthew Stafford probably doesn't. And look, I do think this is going to be a really good game, but the Lions have David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. The one thing that just crushes this team, and they should have maybe not played their starters last week, is Sam Laporta, one of the best tight ends in the NFL. But Amon-Ra St. Brown's going to have to step up. Reynolds is going to have to step up. They have other players that are going to be having to step up. And if there's one thing I know is that Dan Campbell's going to have these boys ready to fucking go to war. And you talk about the atmosphere in Houston hosting a playoff game with a rookie quarterback. Oh God, just go to Detroit for this game. Could you imagine 30 years? Dude, that's where I made a joke about tearing up on the video I made, but when at the very end, when he goes, I waited 30 years for this. Thank you. Dude, I got chills right now everywhere.
Yeah.
You know what it's like to wait 30 years for anything? I know you do. But you'd be surprised how many people make fun of our dedication to our sport or dedication to our team. And I'm going to quote Jimmy Fallon on Fever Pitch when he got into a fight with his girlfriend. And he said, do you know what it's like to love something for 30 years? How about 20? How about 10?
Yeah.
And it's really something that only a diehard fan can really relate to. And they're going to be 80,000+ fans that have been waiting, maybe not all of them, but a large portion of them have been waiting 3 decades for this moment. So you can't even put that kind of energy into words. Like, it's going to be it's almost magic. I think it's going to be a magical environment. And then the whole Rams and Matthew Stafford thing, like, that is just icing on the cake. But Detroit hosting a playoff game is something I thought would happen. And I knew then, and I know now, that I'm taking the Lions to win this game at home in front of their fans. And this train, this Lions, this not the same old Lions story, it keeps going next week. And it's gonna be remarkable, depending on what happens next week. But we won't even go over scenarios. All they got to do right now is take care of business. And this is not an easy game. The Rams are a lot. Dude, I'm hearing dark horse Super Bowl NFC. Because they trust Matthew Stafford, because they trust Sean McVay, because they have 2 elite wide receivers and they have Aaron Donald. Like, they could definitely make a run, but they're going to have to come to Detroit to get this one. And I think Matthew Stafford's not going to get the welcome that he thinks he's going to get. Of course, they're going to cheer, but they're not going to win. Not the Rams.
Yeah, 100%. And Mythic is going to love this segment of the Lions Rams, because I'm also taking the Lions to win this one at home. I'm taking them to win 30-28. It's going to be a very, very close game. Mythic, Lions Nation, everyone who is a Detroit Lions fan, Kyle said it. 30 years of just grinding, grit, just wanting to win and wanting that so bad that you finally have it after 30 years. You're going to host a playoff game in Detroit You guys deserve it. You guys deserve every bit of it. I lived in Michigan for a bit, went up to Detroit pretty often, and you could see that. You can absolutely see that. Just the one, like I would be walking down the street, Lions gear on. No matter what, Lions fans are some of the most faithful fans I know in their down years. 0-16.
Yep.
It didn't matter. You're still wearing Lions gear. You're still supporting your team. And that, all of that support, all of that hope, all of that love has come to this wild card game that you're hosting in Detroit, and the Lions are going to win this. Why are the Lions going to win this? You mentioned it already, Kyle. David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jared Goff. All these guys together, even their defensive end, I can't remember his name right now. Aiden Hutchinson. Michigan-born and bred Aiden Hutchinson, who said, we have a standard. And if you are a Lions fan or a Rams fan, go check out the video we have on YouTube on our page, because that is going to give you chills. We have a standard now in Detroit. And that standard is what they have set these last couple of years with Dan Campbell and all these players. They're going to kill it. Sam Laporta, losing him is huge. But like you said, you have Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs and all these other guys in offense who will love to step up and would love to get all those catches and are more than capable of taking those passes to touchdowns, of running up the score on this Rams team, of running up the score on Matthew Stafford, who gave his all for this Detroit Lions team. And while they should absolutely pay him his homage, give him his roses, they want to beat him on Sunday. And that's exactly what's going to happen. The Rams are coming into this game completely battle-tested. Sean McVay has been to the Super Bowl twice, has won once with his current quarterback in Matthew Stafford. But they have a couple of veterans from that team, right? You got Aaron Donald and you got Cooper Kupp, but they bring in the second youngest roster into this game. Look, Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams, amazing rookies. You're talking about second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth rounders that are doing amazing things for this team, because the LA Rams had fucked them picks to get that Super Bowl. And yet they are finding these diamonds in the dirt in Puka Nacua and Kyron Williams, and they're doing amazing. Now look,
great scouting team over there.
Yeah, great scouting team. And if you told me straight up, who's going to, without knowing anything that happened this season, who's going to win, Sean McVay or Dan Campbell and the Lions? I would have said Sean McVay, but you see how well this Lions team plays. You see the passion and how they play this football game, and you believe in it. You love it. You start to almost be a fan of them. And I think that's what this Lions team is going for, and they're killing it with that. The Rams rank in mid-tier in most defensive categories, but the highest rank they have is in their opposing pass completion percentage. What Jared Goff needs to do, and I think he can do it in this game, is overcome that. If he's going to get that pass completion, if it's going to be bad because of that defense, and he throws an interception, gets a bunch of incompleted passes, he's got to take that Joe Flacco mindset and be like, you know what? Win or go home. I'm still gonna sling it. I'm still gonna get it to my wide receivers. I'm still gonna go deep, right? Like, it does not matter. He has to be able to go over that hurdle. And if he does that, Dan Campbell and Jared Goff and this Lions team is going into the divisional round with plenty of heat, with plenty of momentum. And they're going to look really good doing it, man. I've got the Lions winning 30-28 in a very close game. Detroit Lions fans, you guys are going to the divisional round, baby. Divisional round for the Lions fans.
And one thing that is important to mention is last year we had Lions on Hard Knocks, right? And the Lions were kind of like the NFL's darling in a way, but in an underdog way, not like a Patrick Mahomes way, right? In like a villain, but a good villain. It's so hard to explain.
The anti-hero almost.
Yeah, like
yeah.
they they speak like they play for everyone that's been slept on. It feels like, right? Like
Yes.
they're the voice of the unheard. They are the man's team. They are the unappreciated. They're the unloved. And yeah, a lot of that's changed. But what I want to say was that whole first year or second year, right after Hard Knocks, they went 0-1, 0-2, 0-3, 0-4, 0-5, 0-6. And that is exactly what my video shows if you watch it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, everybody had this kind of belief then too, right? So I only bring that up to mention that even a good story can end badly. Even all the right emotions and the right feelings can twist and turn, and you're like, man, that's not how this was supposed to end. That's football. Football is fucking cruel. It does not care who you're going for, who you're cheering for, what the backstory is, and neither do the Rams. So I'm buying into that story, but I'm willing to admit that I'm buying into the story. I like I'm going with the emotional story of the Lions, knowing full and well that alone is not going to be enough. But I'm going to go back to what Dan Campbell said at Hard Knocks. And what he said while he was on Hard Knocks is probably exactly what he's going to say before they take the field on Sunday. And his question to the team was, who are we? Who are we? And they're going to answer that on the field. And that is going to be the game, dude. That is going to be
I'm so fucking hyped for these playoffs, dude.
I am too, dude. I want to go into the locker room and fucking just start like I don't know, a speech. I don't know, dude.
Dodgeball. Let's start slapping each other.
Fucking go in there. Yeah, just I was thinking more like realistic, but that's funny. I was thinking more like Dwayne Johnson and Gridiron Gang. But this is gonna be an incredible game, man. And I think if the Lions don't win this game, it's not just Lions fans that are gonna be upset. I feel like America's gonna be let down. Like, yeah, the Rams fans are gonna be happy, but I think that if you did a poll, I would say like probably 85% of America wants the Lions to win this game. And rightfully so. It's a great story, and it's been a long time. And I think the players, they deserve success. And I'll say this last part. We mentioned, is it a loss for the season? And some people said no, they clinched the division for the first time in 30 years. No, the season is not a loss. But two things can be true. The season is not a loss, but it is also a major letdown if they get bounced in the first round. Make no mistake about it. Nobody is going to leave that Lions stadium if they lose telling themselves, at least we went. Nobody, because that's just not the way it goes. No. Especially against a Rams team that is not, they're not playing the Cowboys. They're not playing the 49ers. They got to take care of business or it will be considered a letdown. That's just the way it is. Like the expectations, they go up as the performance does. And they need to, I'll say after they win this game, if they win this game, they can lose next week and the vibes will still be high. But they can't drop this one. Not in front of their fans. They waited 30 years for this. Yes. And what did they wait 30 years for? We'll find out.
I love that. And you're right. And one thing that I love about sports fandom, mostly NFL, right? And I think Bill mentioned it earlier, right? There are some bars who are not letting you in if you have a Stafford Lions jersey. They're not doing it. And I love that. As a Bears fan who hates the Packers with just a passion, and I have to bite my tongue every time I say good things about the Packers, right? I love that pettiness in sports. That's what makes us fans. That's what this is all about, is living and dying with your team, living and dying for 30 years to get a playoff game for Lions fans. And Rams fans are going to hate hearing this, but goddamn, what a story it is for the Lions. And when this happens, when you have the almost lovable loser moniker to yourself, which the Lions have had for a long time now, you get to this success and it's just like, hell yeah, this is a great story. And like you said, they can't do this. They can't lose. They can't let the fans down in this game. And if they win this one and they go into the next one and you know, a loss happens, as a Lions fan, you are still like, wow, I'm going to be mad and sad about this loss. But the next day or the next week or the next month, you're going to be like, I love the direction that my Detroit Lions are heading because of where we have been and where we are going.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And the Lions are the 19th in rushing yards, or in opponent yards per game. Ooh. So watch out for that a little bit. Like we're in the bottom half at 19, and the Rams, that's their thing, right? Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, like there will be points scored in this game. This game is going to be played in a dome, 75 degrees, no wind, and and there will be points. How is the Detroit Lions defense going to hold up against this offense, especially with a real running threat, which just emerged halfway through the year? Like they had Cam Akers, and they were like, oh, Cam Akers is a Viking now, and then we're like, oh, they're going with this guy, and then all of a sudden this guy scored like a touchdown in every single game since he took over. So look, ridiculous. We talk about Jared Goff in this offense and compensating for not having Sam Laporta, but I really do think if the Lions are going to win this game, it's going to be their defense. It's going to be Aiden Hutchinson with a forced fumble. And that is going to be a scene to remember, because Matthew Stafford, his problem was that he was so good that he had the Lions like 7-10, 7-9 every year, and with a couple exceptions both ways. But
one playoffs,
when Aiden Hutchinson strip sacks Matthew Stafford, just a moment to realize what we're actually looking at. We're looking at Matthew Stafford getting traded to the Rams, which allowed the Lions to be bad enough to get the first overall pick and draft Aiden Hutchinson, who will now 2 years later strip sack the former quarterback.
Oh yeah, dude.
That is just the circle of life, brother. Okay, do you got anything else on that game?
No, go Lions. Let's go.
Go Lions. All right. Monday night, we have the Philadelphia Eagles traveling to Tampa Bay. There were stories that just emerged today about Nick Sirianni potentially not having a job. We talked about him and his coaching. Then it came out and they said, no, that's not actually true. What do we know? Well, where there's smoke, there's usually a fire. And when you go into the playoffs 1-5 after starting 10-1, there's going to be a little bit of fire somewhere. And the Eagles just have not been themselves. They look super beatable. Their offenses, they tried to put their starters in against the Giants and ended up sitting them because they were getting blown out. I mean, it's like exactly the opposite of a confidence booster going into this game. But on the other side, it kind of worked out nicely for Philly because they're going to play probably the least deserving team in the playoffs, who just kind of ended up in here by default. Like they deserve to be here because they won their division, but this was a weak division. But Tampa is going to be hosting. And the problem is, like, I want to say like this worked out great for the Eagles because they get to play Tampa, but I just don't know if I'm there right now to think that the Eagles are going to be able to take advantage of that. Like they don't seem like the kind of team that could really capitalize on this type of opportunity right now. And Jalen Hurts, I really do trust him, and I trust Jason Kelce. I do love the Baker Mayfield story. Tampa Bay also hosted a playoff game last year. I think they lost like 40-0 or something like that, 40-3 or whatever it was. Tom Brady, bad game. I think this could be something. I don't want to say it could be a blowout, but I'm going to take the Eagles here. I'm going to take Jalen Hurts. I'm going to take Jason Kelce. I'm going to take AJ Brown, who just the one thing though, man, is like everything just feels like it's going awful for the Eagles. Like the coaching, the stories, the headlines, the losing. We're hearing AJ Brown scrubbed all of Philly stuff off his social media and deleted his Twitter. He did this today. So like,
oh God,
it just seems like everything's falling apart. And literally, if they don't have Jalen Hurts, I'm probably going Tampa. But to me, Jalen Hurts is one of the strongest leaders in the NFL, not just at the quarterback position, but as a player. He's a professional, and he's talented, and he's smart, he's poised, he's calm, he's everything that you want your franchise. He's packaged up like you created him. And yeah, he hasn't been doing that great, but they lost their offensive coordinator, their defensive coordinator. And no, I don't expect Philly to come out and it's like, oh, where's this been all year? But I do expect Jalen Hurts to win against Baker Mayfield. I don't know if it's going to be 14-17, something like that. But I'm going with the Eagles here because I think Jalen Hurts is the better quarterback. And I also think that the Eagles have the better defense, even though they've been really bad lately too.
Yeah.
It's just, Jalen Carter, this team has no business going 1-5 in their final 6. And I just like the Chiefs. I don't think a switch is going to get flipped, but I also don't think that they need to flip the switch against Tampa. All they got to do is halfway flip it, and then they can do the other half next week. And that's what I'm going with. Philly, probably an ugly game. I'm going to say 14-17 Eagles.
Oh, okay. I like that. And we're pretty close too, because I couldn't agree more with what you're saying. I've also got the Eagles in this one. I've got them 20-13 Eagles in this game. So we're right there with each other. And I believe as well that, look, the Baker Mayfield story is just awesome, man. Last year, what does he do? He gets traded to the Rams. The Thursday night football game that really will go down, I believe, in history, right? Like, how quickly can a guy who got traded to a team in 2 days lead them to a win in a last minute, throw to Van Jefferson? It was ridiculous. It was an awesome story. And Baker Mayfield, I think at that point, won a job for this following season, right? And what did he do with that job that he got in Tampa Bay? He won the division for the NFC South. He won it for the Bucs. He won it with a Hall of Fame wide receiver, future Hall of Fame wide receiver, Mike Evans, a Rachaad White running back who is doing damage in the running back position. Baker Mayfield is such a great story, man. And one that really shouldn't go unnoticed in what will be the history of Baker Mayfield, right? Former first round pick, goes to Cleveland, does great things in Cleveland. When they picked him, I've said this before on the show, but I was like, this is the guy. Baker Mayfield is the guy. He doesn't really have too many issues. He's a good quarterback. He's level-headed. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's going to lead the Browns to the promised land. And what does he do? He leads them to the playoffs. They love Baker Mayfield. And what happens? Kevin Stefanski, the ownership, find a situation in which they can acquire Deshaun Watson, and they do it. And Baker Mayfield is like, my world has just been rocked. This guy was in commercials in the stadium for the Browns. This guy was loved by the fans and brought them to their first playoffs in a long time. When Browns fans had names of their quarterbacks, all the quarterbacks they had in the last 20 years on one jersey, and you're like, this is the guy. He had one down year because he was injured, and all of a sudden they move on like that. Great story for Baker Mayfield. Unfortunately, just like you said, Kyle, I'm taking Jalen Hurts. I'm taking the team who was just in the Super Bowl last year. You're right. They do not deserve to be in a spot that they're in. These are the two lesser teams in the playoffs. Really, when you look at it, these are the two worst teams in the playoffs heading into this wild card weekend. Going into this, they're 1-5. The Bucs are in the NFC South. Again, a division that most fans would tell you do not deserve to host a game in the playoffs.
Definitely not.
Right? Like that's just what it is. And all that being said about the Bucs and Baker Mayfield, I'm still taking the Eagles because of AJ Brown, because of Devontae Smith, because of a guy named Jalen fucking Hurts, Nick Sirianni, and Goddard. Yeah.
DeAndre Swift.
DeAndre Swift, Gainwell, all these guys on this team are ridiculous. And look, they have suffered. Nick Sirianni and this Eagles team have suffered from their coordinators leaving, which was huge. You got Gannon leaving. You've got, I forget who their defensive guy was, but you got them leaving. And all of a sudden, this team looks bad. Now, Philly doesn't want Nick Sirianni in the head coaching position. They don't want Sirianni anywhere near this team. but they're still in the playoffs. They're an 11-6 team or 12-5, whatever it is. They Sirianni got cocky against the Chiefs. Can you hear me now, Chiefs fans? Ever since then, 1-5. And Eagles fans, even though they've just been in the Super Bowl last year, are asking for this guy's head. And you're like, what? But they are very, very, I feel like the NFL backs them up in what they're saying. The production isn't there. The last few games going to playoffs isn't there. You lost the NFC East division to the Cowboys. You could have had it. You lose that. Of course, fans are going to be mad. But I'm taking them because of all those names that I said, the way they play when it gets to the playoffs. I feel like the Eagles in the last couple of years can be one of those teams, like you said, can flip the switch. Do they need to completely flip the switch against Tampa? No, they don't. But they definitely need to improve on what they've done over the last couple of weeks, because it is really embarrassing what's happened in Philly. But if they can win this, I think you're going to have the fans back. I think you're going to have the fans backing you up. And if Nick Sirianni and this Eagles team can do it in a very, very convincing fashion, more than 20 points, you're talking 30 points, and you put the Bucs at like 13, 14, the fans all of a sudden, they are bought back in. The Eagles are now, to the fans, we're going to the fucking Super Bowl. No one's in our way. You are all of a sudden bought all the way back in. Sirianni's job is no longer a thought. This is our guy. And that's just how it goes, man. That's just how it goes to be a fan. They are the 8th best rush team in the NFL. And while the Bucs have an amazing run defense, like you said, and like I said, Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, that's going to be the difference in this game. I'm taking them over Baker Mayfield and, unfortunately, Mike Evans. But Mike Evans won a Super Bowl already, so he's good. I'm taking the Eagles 20-13 against the Bucs on Monday night.
All right, and just a couple injury things. So Jalen Hurts was upgraded to a full participant in practice, and then AJ Brown remains out but this game's on Monday. And I think they're just, hey, don't do anything. We need you for this game. Just stay at home.
Don't look at anything.
Yeah. AJ's remained out of practice Friday with the knee injury, keeping his status for Monday's game up in the air. And then Reed Blankenship, the safety, groin. Safety Sidney Brown, knee, also remained out of practice. And then receiver Devontae Smith has an ankle. Darius Slay has a knee. DeAndre Swift is just sick. So there is kind of the chips falling for the Bucs right now. A lot of those names that we just said, they may play, but clearly not at 100%. They're not going to play. And I think what makes it so difficult for us is that the Bucs got into this game by winning 9-0 against the Panthers. That's how they ended up here. Now, if they would have had the game that they had in Green Bay, where Baker had a perfect passer rating in December in Lambeau, first quarterback ever, and threw 3 touchdown passes and 300 yards like he did in that game, like I think we would all be like Bucs, right? But yeah, we've just seen like really high highs, but we've seen some low places too from this Bucs team. And it's almost like, what are we going to get out of the Bucs? Like, what Bucs are going to show up? Are they going to score 9 points or 30 points? Is Mike Evans going to get 2 touchdowns or 1 catch? Is Chris Godwin going to get a touchdown, or is he going to get 3 targets? Like, there's so much. Is Rachaad White going to have 100 yards, or is he going to have 17? Like, yeah, a little bit of an exaggeration, but those are all fair questions surrounding the Buccaneers. And it's not like Todd Bowles is some offensive guru. Like, you saw what him and Tom Brady looked like last year, and this is kind of the same shit. And how did that work out for the Bucs in the playoffs last year? Well, they had a tougher opponent in the Cowboys at that particular moment in time. But you got to go with the Eagles here. Now there's a lot of people backing the Bucs because that it's like that switch that we're expecting. Even if it halfway turns, I don't think it's going to turn the way we think it's going to. And here's my bold prediction. The Eagles win this game, but it's not going to be because of all of those players that you mentioned. I think that the stats for the wide receivers are going to be underwhelming by the end of the game. But I do think Jalen Hurts is going to run for 100 yards in this game. I think Jalen Hurts gets over 100 yards on the ground. I think that what we've seen all season, where he literally likes to run as a last resort, and he just really wants to throw the ball. I don't think you're going to get that in this game. And if you need film to see what I'm talking about, go look at the Eagles-Packers game last year on Sunday Night Football, where Hurts literally took off almost every play in the first half. He had 100 yards in the first half rushing. So don't forget, Jalen Hurts can do that, and I wouldn't be surprised with the way the season's gone, the way AJ Brown's acting with the social media and Twitter and all that, just the way Sirianni, like the way everything is. I could see Jalen Hurts just taking over this game and just running a lot in this game.
Yeah.
And that is going to be one of my key matchups in this one for the Bucks. It is and I wrote it down here. Where is it? Oh no, that's not where I wrote it. Here it is. Levante David, linebacker for the Buccaneers. He's an elite run stopper whose speed in diagnosing the opposition and making tackles will be critical for Tampa Bay to grind down Philadelphia's powerful rushing attack. Is he going to be able, and this is going to be even more of a key factor, because I think Jalen Hurts is going to be more of a running threat than he has been this season so far. I think that they're going to run a lot of those RPOs, and I think he's going to keep it a lot of those times. And I think there's going to be a lot of third down, 3rd and 13s where he just takes off and just kind of turns into Tebow time or something. I don't, you know what I mean? Just like, oh, we're going to fucking win this game, even if I got to, put all you on my back. And that's why I think it's going to be like a low scoring, messy game. But Jalen Hurts, I think he's the X factor in this game.
I love that. And those are our breakdowns, guys. Like this week, this super wild card weekend is just awesome. It's one of my favorite. Kyle and I have said it's one of our favorite playoff weekends because you have a lot of hope. You have great storylines. Like we've talked about everything, and you're going to be able to catch all those games right here on the Only Football Podcast with Kyle and I, because we're streaming all of those games, and there's going to be tons of excitement, tons of like, oh my God, and tons of like, fuck, you know what I mean? So it's just, this weekend is going to be amazing. And make sure to please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that share, comment, all that stuff, and hit that notifications button to make sure you catch us here on the Only Football Podcast for all of those playoff games. Kyle, you got anything else for this super wild card weekend?
Bill throws in his predictions right here. No, not his predictions. What he wants to happen. Texans, Dolphins, Bills, Packers, Lions, Bucks. No NFC East teams. Not a shocker. Not a shocker from a Giants fan. No. And I think it could happen. I think the Bucks could beat and I picked the Packers. It could happen. It would be crazy. It would be, oh my God, there'd be fires. Oh man, the content we're gonna get. This is gonna be just insane, man. I love this week because anything can happen, and there's not one game that's on this list that if it were just a regular Sunday, you wouldn't be like, that's a good game. Every single game, you'd be like, ooh, Lions are playing Detroit. The Bills are playing the Steelers, the Chiefs, and Dolphins again. Man, I feel like we're spoiled. It seems like even more than usual. Maybe it's just I'm excited because it's been a while since we've been in the playoffs a whole year. But this one feels like just a little more like there's a little more to it. The Tyreek Hill returning, Jared Goff playing all of these, the Packers and Mike McCarthy and all of this. I mean, there's just so many storylines. Normally, I think there's like one, it's like, this game, we can make a cool story. This cool. One, this year, you have to find the game that doesn't have a story.
Exactly. This is going to be just such a good super wild card weekend, man. I'm excited. And again, catch it all here on the Only Football
tomorrow.
Podcast. Tomorrow, baby.
Tomorrow.
Let's go. Let's go. I fucking love it. I fucking love playoff football. And if the Bears were in it, it'd be even better.
Oh, my man. Yeah.
100%, right? All right.
We'll get there.
We'll get there eventually. Bears and Broncos. We'll get there. We'll get
there in the same year because we're basically the same team.
Let's go. Hell yeah, let's do it. Crafty, so many Cinderella stories converging this weekend. 100%. Kyle, a lot has happened this week, starting with Black Monday, regarding head coaches, coordinators, college coaches taking jobs, being fired, mutually parting ways, advisor roles. And let's get into it, man. Let's get into it with the biggest splash of them all. Bill Belichick is no longer the head coach / GM of the New England Patriots. They had a press conference. He talked about what he was, what he felt during his 24 years as the New England Patriots head coach and GM, what it meant to him. And he really didn't get emotional until he talked about the fans, which is huge. He talked about a fan coming up to him in Patriots gear and talking to him. And that's when you could tell his voice was like, it was breaking a little bit. And, and when we look at what Bill Belichick has done over his tenure as a New England head coach, right? With Tom Brady, with those defenses that he constructed, with those players later in the rounds that became superstars, attaining free agents, right? You get a guy like Randy Moss, who a lot of people were saying, he's at the tail end of his career, breaks the touchdown season receiving record with Tom Brady. It's just, he has a ton 50 of touchdowns with him. 50. It's just ridiculous. Like what he was able to do with this team. And you know what? We're going to talk to Rusty eventually about this and what this means to a New England Patriots fan. But what he was able to do for not only the Patriots, but for football was outstanding. You cannot like quantify that in anything, in a number, in a stat, nothing. What he did for football and what he did for the New England Patriots was huge, and he deserves roses. He deserves Hall of Fame. He deserves everything. I've been a huge critic of Bill Belichick over the last couple of years because of the Tom Brady, what his record was without Tom Brady. But simply speaking, they were the best. Similar to what Ditka and Buddy Ryan were with those Bears. When they were together, it was great. There was a lot of butting heads, but separate, they could not succeed. And it seemed like that's what happened with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. But that does not take anything away from what Bill Belichick did. The signings he made, like I said, right? Like it wasn't just Tom Brady that did it. Bill Belichick was bringing in people. He was making moves. He was cutting people. I know this person right here isn't going to make it. He's winning Super Bowls, 6-time Super Bowl winner. Kyle, what Bill Belichick did in Tampa, why do I keep saying Tampa Bay? In New England.
Tom Brady went to the Bucs.
Exactly. That's why. What Bill Belichick did in New England will never be done again and never replicated. And, you know, hats off to Bill Belichick and what he did with Tom Brady.
For sure. And I was shocked. Like I was shocked.
Yeah.
And I don't know the ins and outs of it because I'm not connected to the franchise like that. But from the outside, I always believed that Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi, and it's just look around the NFL at all the different type of coaches that were just fired, right? You got Seattle trying to make it work with Geno Smith. You got Bill Belichick trying to make it work with Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones. You got the Titans, who had 3 quarterbacks this season. And who's the other? You had the Panthers, and I don't think Bryce Young was playing that great, but he doesn't have a ton of weapons. But it's just there's a common theme surrounding specifically great head coaches, like Hall of Fame head coaches, Bill Belichick, Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick, losing their jobs because of the quarterback play, in my opinion. And I think when you realize that, I just felt like it was a little premature. I would have liked to see the Patriots move. They already have a super high draft pick. And I think what they all decided on is, hey, this is a great time to kind of pass the baton, right? And I think Belichick probably got called into his office and they said, look, this is the direction that we want to go, but we want to make sure that this relationship, ends in an amicable way. We don't want any hard feelings. And I think Belichick was like, let Gerard Mayo take over, because that was already something that everyone knew, that he was the successor, and let him draft his franchise quarterback. Let him do what D'Amico did in his first year. Don't let him inherit Mac Jones. Don't let him inherit Bailey Zappi. And in a way, I think that's absolutely fair to Gerard Mayo. But there's a part of me that's like, why didn't Bill Belichick get that opportunity? Why? Because I just mentioned when he left, I said 3 Hall of Fame coaches, Pete Carroll, Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick, all got fired with Geno Smith, Ryan Tannehill, Will Levis, Bailey Zappi, Mac Jones.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have a mediocre quarterback, it's only a matter of time before your coach is next. And I know, because we had 10 quarterbacks since Manning retired, and all of the coaches got fired. All of them.
Yep.
And it's not until now that we have a coach that we can't just fire, because his status is too high, and he's here to fix things. But around the league, like there's just a lot of coaches that I feel like are getting the brunt end of this end of the stick, and it's because of the quarterback play. And it does kind of. I do think somebody else needed to be doing the drafting in New England. The drafting has been just subpar, and I also think when you look at Nick Saban, who just stepped away from football, I think Nick Saban was able to adapt. Like if you watch any documentaries on him, he always talks about, like, back in the day, it was fear. It was like, I'm angry all the time, and if you're on my shit list, life's not going to be good for you. And then Gen Z was like, I'm triggered. and then he was like, oh shit, okay, I guess we're gonna have to. I'm gonna have to adapt. Which
NIL stuff, yeah.
And when you coach for as long as these guys are coaching, you hit like what's it called, Gen Z, baby boomers, like
generations.
You hit a whole new generation of people, and I think that's what happened with Bill Belichick. But unlike Saban, Belichick wasn't able to adapt. Let's just be real. He kind of stayed who he is, stayed who he was. I don't know if he's done coaching. I haven't heard anything about him being done coaching, but all the teams that are really excited to get him, it's I'm 50-50 on it. Like, yes, it's exciting because he is who he is. But is he going to adapt? Is he going to change in any way? Because obviously what's been happening, the talent he's been seeking, the drafts that he's made, the quarterbacks he selected, the plays, everything has just been even the attention to detail, pre-snap penalties, like that's not the Patriot way. Expatriates are coming on air talking about, I don't even know what's going on in that building anymore, because that shit did not fly when we were there. And it's probably fucking TikTok. Attention to detail is gone. We can't focus on shit now. So
you sound like such a boomer.
Do I? Well, it's true. No, they've done studies, dude. Getting a dopamine hit, dude. Just watch somebody do it, right? They decide in 1.5 seconds they don't like it. They're like, nope. I like this one, but fuck, I gotta go. No, it's a real thing. Like, it would be silly to act like that doesn't, mold you in a way. Just like MTV molded us growing up. We all have things that mold us for good or for worse. And I think I just, you're seeing younger coaches have a lot more success, and Bill Belichick kind of like, oh, we're going to do it the Patriot way. And now it's not even, it used to be, we're going to do it the Patriot way. And that actually transpired onto the field. But now you have Bill Belichick he hasn't changed, trying to do it the Patriot way. And it's not manifesting on his roster at all. It's not sticking. And I think for Belichick, he probably just sat down and was like, you know what, it's time. We'll pass the baton here, because honestly, what we're not talking about is there's probably things about New England that Bill Belichick didn't like. Who knows? You know what I mean? Like, there might have been things that because he doesn't really talk much. We don't really know what's going on with him, but that was a lot of pressure to be the head coach, the play caller, or not the play caller because O'Brien came in, but the GM and the head coach. Like, it's ridiculous. You're wearing all these hats. Last year, they didn't even have an offensive play caller or quarterback. They're like changing it up every single week. And like, I just don't know if it's fair to have expected better results. And I think the kind of unheard story is maybe Bill Belichick was the one that was most excited for this decision.
Yeah, I agree. There was a lot of reports about what the conversations were after Tom Brady left, or even before when Bill Belichick wanted to move on from Brady. Him and Kraft, really, their relationship took on a really bumpy road. When I feel like they both decided we are going to move on from Tom Brady and we're still going to be successful, and they didn't find that. Sure, Mac Jones' rookie season, they're in the playoffs. Awesome, cool. You can build off that. But they didn't. So from there on, it was just like heads butting. There weren't agreements on certain things. But again, right, like what he was able to still do in that period from 2000 to 2021, whenever it was that Brady left, like just great. He's still a season's worth of wins away from having the most all-time wins as an NFL head coach. And I think, like you said, while he's not done coaching in the slightest, he's going to keep going to achieve that goal, which I think he should. And I think we'll put him in that like upper echelon of coaching, right? Like
his offensive coordinator is.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. And Josh McDaniels. Yeah.
Got fired. So no one's picking him up as head coach, promise. So Belichick essentially, let's say, takes over the Chargers, and the offensive coordinator is Josh McDaniels, but now they have a quarterback and a ton of talent on that defense.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden things are working again.
He could coach for another 10 years, honestly.
He could. And Saban too. Like, Saban could be doing what Sean Payton did. Like, oh yeah, I'm done coaching. 1 year away. He's like, I fucking miss it, dude. I miss the smell. Have you ever watched those interviews when Sean was trying to be a TV analyst? He just kept talking about like, oh, it's like being at a racetrack, which I've never been to a NASCAR racetrack.
Smell the rubber.
He's like, you can smell the rubber. You're there, but you're not in the car. That's how it feels being in the media. He was like, I want to get back in that car. And I think there's just like a guy like Saban, man. I have a hard time thinking he's just going to. And to be fair, Saban, people are saying, did it the right way because he left when his team went to the playoffs and still performed well. Belichick,
at the higher level.
Yeah, and Belichick kind of leaves with a lot to be desired. But man, people need to just back the fuck off him because he won 6 Super Bowls. 6. And you had a couple mediocre seasons. Get over it. You won 6 Super Bowls with this guy. He deserves all the flowers, like you said. He's a Hall of Fame coach. He's the greatest coach of my entire lifetime. And he probably will be, no matter how old I hopefully get. But yeah, man. I don't know if Belichick's going to just go right into another position. Like, it's totally possible that maybe his family would enjoy having him home. Like, I can only go off what I would do. If I were in his shoes, I would definitely take a year and do all this thing, go to that daddy-daughter dance that I miss, go to the, just be involved. And then, eventually this family will be like, when are you going to go coach again? Get the fuck out of here. and then he'll go pick up a job. That's literally what happened to
Get
Sean.
used to it. Yeah.
He's like, they didn't want me here anymore. So
I love it. And just quick
around here.
Huge shout out to Crafty here. I love your perspective on this stuff, Crafty. So we're enjoying your comments for sure. Now let's move on to another coach. Yeah, great points you're making, Crafty, for sure. Let's move on to another coach, right? Has been in the same organization for over a decade now, I believe, 14 years or something like that. Pete Carroll moved on, resigned, or moved to a advisor role, I believe is what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing from the Seahawks, no longer going to be there. And we would always talk about Pete Carroll, man. 72, 70, whatever. He's still running up and down the sideline, still chomping on that gum, still being super involved in what's going on with the Seahawks team, what's going on with moves, what's going on with players, what's going on with play calling, all that stuff. We love that youthfulness of Pete Carroll. And there was an interview, I believe, earlier this year where he's like, I'm not moving on from coaching. But really the big splash came, I think, the day after Black Monday on Tuesday or Wednesday. I forget which day it was, that Pete Carroll was no longer going to be the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. He brought them a Super Bowl with Russ Wilson and that Legion of Boom. And he's got a lot of the same staff. A couple of those staff members are, I think, in line. I forget if it's their defensive coordinator or their offensive coordinator who is like in line to take that role of a head coach from Pete Carroll. But man, another guy who was in the same organization, same city for a long time and brought a Super Bowl, and a guy who had a lot of success in college as well. You know, I feel like we're losing a ton of legends similar to when and the pros. Yeah. And even, yeah, you're right. He went pros, college pros, right. And had success. And it's really becoming one of those times, Kyle, where Peyton Manning retired, Tom Brady retired, Drew Brees retired. Like these quarterbacks that you and I grew up loving and watching Sunday in, Sunday out, are that era is over.
I wasn't going to make a big thing, but I just wanted to tell you that this is the first time since 1998 that Peyton Manning or Tom Brady's not in the postseason.
Oh, wow. It's insane. It is crazy. It is crazy that these guys, that this era is just moving on. We're still going to have Bill Belichick, right? We're still going to have Bill Belichick. But it's just, it's crazy what this era of football is becoming, right? And while he's still going to coach and stuff and do all that, Pete Carroll is still kind of like Casey says here, a legendary coach. Yes, that you know what happened, right? He won a Super Bowl. He decided to run or pass on what was assumably a run play against the Patriots, and he could have won too. And that was what a lot of people say. That was the play that decided that they were not going to be a dynasty with Russ Wilson and the Legion of Boom and that Seattle Seahawks team. It could have been, right? But they say that play, they pinpointed that as the downfall of the Seahawks dynasty. But look, when you're in a coaching position in one organization for as long as Pete Carroll was, and you still had success, you have had a great career. You like I said earlier, Kyle, like he still looked like he was 30 years old, 40 years old, up and down the sideline, chomping on that gum, you know, taking his shirt off when he drafted DK. Like, you know what I mean? Like this was a very excited and very much still in it head coach of Pete Carroll. So he's going to be missed. His personality, I think, is going to be missed. And, you know, in my opinion, I don't think we've seen the last of Pete Carroll. I think what you said was Sean Payton, it's going to get to him, man. Like, yes, Sean Payton is much younger than Pete Carroll, but I think Pete Carroll's still in his 70s. He's still going to be like, you know what I miss? I miss that the smell of the rubber. I miss that being in the car. I miss being on the sideline. I miss being in the locker room with those guys. I miss coming up with schemes, with plans. And I think we're going to see Pete Carroll back. Whether it's, you know, he's in an advisor role now, again, from what I've read, but I think he might get back into coaching with the Seahawks. I don't know, but I think he gets back into it.
1998. That's
Payne and Brady in the play. Yeah, 27-ish. 26, like you said, yeah.
But yeah, it's still insane, and it's been a long time. And I think I said this earlier, but this is really the one head coach that gave me this idea where I think sometimes it's not so much about like I'm talking about a firing. It's not so much about what a player didn't do. or a coach.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about what he didn't do. It's about a coach that's available. And sometimes there's somebody available. Like there were teams so high on DeMeco Ryans. Denver tried to hire him over Sean Payton, DeMeco Ryans.
Oh, wow.
And sometimes there's a coach like that where it's like, look, we love you, Pete. And yes, you're doing a great job, but we are always making a contingency plan. Remember, we did the bunny ears just 3 days ago.
Yeah.
And they asked Pete about it. And he said, no, we have to do a better job coaching. Players, we all need to do a better job. But no, I have a ton of energy and I still want to coach. So that tells me just one day before he gets let go that this is totally not Pete's decision, which also tells me that there's a coach candidate out there that they want to get now that won't be available in 1 year when he walks away or 2 years when he leaves. This is a now or never situation. Now, who that coach is, I'm not sure, but I do believe one of the big name coaches is going to be in Seattle because they got their eyes on somebody. Clearly, there's more to it than just Pete, like you said, being a coach of the year candidate last year and falling one game short of the playoffs this year and getting fired. There's got to be more to the story than that. And man, Pete was he's all class.
Always.
He stood up in the podium and acted fired up, about this advisor position. And and we all knew that he didn't want to do it, but he did that for the team and he just put on a good attitude. And that's just, I don't know. I was going to say it's like what being a man is, but that's not it. It's just like, I don't know. What would you call that? That attitude? I think
selfless. He's just, selfless and just being so committed to the team. Like you said, selfless, being so committed to that team and understanding that I really do need to take a step back. I have a 20 plus year career of a resume that I can use to go to another team, but I love this team. I love this part of me so much that I'm willing to take that step back for the betterment of this team.
And Washington really does become you. Like if you live in Washington for more than I miss Washington every single day. It's just it's the most beautiful place in the United States. If you love trails and nature. And why am I talking about that? Because I think that a big reason he's an advisor position, and this kind of goes hand in hand with what you're saying about him moving on next year, is because he's built an entire life in Seattle. He has a house. He has kids, grandkids. They didn't want to give him the pack your bags, you know what I mean? Get out of here.
Yeah.
So they're like, look, be an advisor for a year. If you want to move on and coach, then you can. But this gives you a year to get your ducks in a row, figure out where you want to go and all of that stuff. So like, that's all just, I don't know if any of it's true, but I think that might be part of it where the front office was like, we're not going to just kick you out the door. You didn't do anything wrong. We just, you can even come be an advisor for a little bit, until you figure out what you want to do. I think something like that may have been going on, but let's not just discredit that Pete Carroll's been, next to Sean McVay, the best drafting head coach in the league.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even close, man. When all they have done in the last 2 years is hit. Devin Witherspoon, hit. DK Metcalf, hit. Kenneth Walker, hit. The Devin Witherspoon, hit.
Yep.
Jackson
Smith-Njigba.
Thanks. Hit. I mean, the amount of talent, he's just way too important, I think, to leave. And I think they realize, like, I don't love the way you're coaching situationally. You are a defensive coach. Maybe what we would like, let's get the best of both worlds. Let's get you doing the drafting because you're the shit at that. Yeah. And let's get an offensive coach to come in and find, new creative ways to use the players that you're drafting.
Yeah, move more towards what the NFL is geared in, right?
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So I think that was just a win-win for the Seahawks. And they were like, let's see if Pete is cool with it. And I think Pete was like, if that's what I got to do to be part of the team, because I was not prepared to move. And or and if he still has that bug, because he probably does, because people don't just coach in their 80s if they don't love it, right? And people that coach as old as he does usually coach until a year before they die. Bobby Bowden, like there's a history. The coach at Penn State that did all that evil shit. There's just a ton of examples of people that clearly are just coaching for the love of the game. It's not money. It's what they live and breathe to do. And I think Carroll, coaching at this age, he's one of those guys. So I do think he probably goes on, like you said, to coach somewhere else. But maybe Carroll won't. Maybe he'll embrace this next chapter of his life and he'll get into it and start rubbing shoulders with, owners and stuff like that. And because really it's like when John Elway got fired, he got a promotion. They're like, we don't want you GM anymore. Now you're over the GM.
We don't want you anywhere near there.
Yeah. So I think that might just be what's going on. But yeah, man, between this and Belichick and the next one we're going to get to, totally shocked. All three of these blew my mind.
And the most shocking, I think, of them all, right? Bill Belichick was huge. Pete Carroll was also huge, but really a coach of the year winner, a guy who was leading his team, into a down year. Sure, he's had a couple down years, but it seemed like what the feeling was around Tennessee was, you still got Mike Vrabel. You guys are going to be fine. And what happened on Monday? Mike Vrabel fired from the Tennessee Titans. And yes, 100% agree. The dumbest decision I think you can go as an organization. You have a coach who was a coach of the year winner. You leave him, and I've said this before, you leave him with an aging Derrick Henry, an aging Ryan Tannehill. And yes, you made the shot for Will Levis. And while Will Levis has impressed in some games, he wasn't like that top tier talent that you wanted to get, right? He really wasn't that first overall, second overall, something like this. But you make this decision, and us non-Tennessee fans are like, what are you doing? We would kill for this coach.
Here. You should see it.
I'm sure. And
news people, right? Not riots, pickets, protests. Like, this is not going over well in the city. Yeah, they are fucking pissed, and they're blaming the owner, which doesn't help that it's a woman owner on top of it, because it's like, why is she doing this? It doesn't make any sense. And I'll go on a rant. So continue.
100%. And the fact that Kyle is in that city with another group of diehard fans, like it's just like, because these Tennessee Titans fans know wherever Mike Vrabel goes, he's going to succeed, and he's going to come back to Tennessee eventually and get his revenge. Again, look, the decisions being made, you give up AJ Brown. You don't draft a top tier quarterback. You don't trade for a top tier quarterback. You don't get another great running back. You rely on Treylon Burks to take over AJ Brown. No, all these decisions were bad. Ownership and the front office was even surprised. They're like, what? You got rid of Mike Vrabel? That was our cornerstone of this franchise, and you got rid of him. And again, bad decision, going to come back to haunt him. And I don't know what the ripples are going to cause for that ownership, but it's going to be bad. It is going to be bad. And Kyle, I'm going to let you go here in a sec, but Mike Vrabel, wherever he ends up, man, I'm going to be very jealous. And that team, that organization is going to be very successful. All right, chill out. Okay. It's going to be very, very successful. Kyle, the man from Wisconsin, has the floor.
Okay. Just to be clear, I am pro woman ownership. What I mean is, it's not good for the brand. This move was not good for the brand. Like there's been a lot of people that disagree with this decision, and I'm right there with them. You don't go from a coach of the year candidate and then you got, like Rick said, all the GM, right? Terrible. Not drafting well, age Derrick Henry, all of that. I think we get all that. But the one thing that all these coaches have in common is that there's kind of like a new leaf being turned. You look at the Patriots and it's like, it's the right time for Bill to go, because not only is Jared Mayo going to take over, but he's going to draft a franchise quarterback with the top pick. You go to Seattle. Crafty said it up here. He goes, Seattle needs to move on from Geno. Well, they're going to get a new head coach, and that new head coach is probably going to draft a new quarterback, a new leaf, right? Now, why is this such a big kind of hot topic right now? Is because CJ Stroud and DeMeco Ryans, a first-time head coach and a first-time quarterback, are in the playoffs hosting a playoff game. So all these other teams, in my opinion, are looking at this saying, hey, we have a draft pick that we could draft a franchise quarterback, and we could also get a brand new head coach. I mean, it's worked out so great for the Texans. Now, here's what makes the Tennessee Titans kind of the exception. The owner has already come out and talked about how she plans to move forward with Will Levis. And Rick, I was just telling everybody, the one thing in common is for the Patriots and the Seahawks, both teams are getting rid of their head coaches. And the idea is that they're going to get a new head coach and a brand new quarterback. Like the Patriots are going to draft the top quarterback, and all of this pressure because DeMeco Ryans and CJ Stroud are going so well. It's like, whoa, let's try to do both at the same time. Seattle's doing it. Patriots are doing it. But Tennessee, the owners already come out and said that they want to invest in Will Levis. Now, Will Levis had a couple great games, enough where I was like, oh, there's something there. I'm not necessarily like, I'm not there yet where it's like, let's build around this guy. You know, to me, like, he still has to prove what he's worth. And that also tells me that Tennessee is going to draft a weapon, not a quarterback, with a high pick. Yeah. And that makes Tennessee kind of an outlier from Seattle and New England, in my opinion. And that's why it makes no sense. It would make no sense no matter what, but it would make a little more sense if they were like, we're gonna get a new quarterback in here and a new head coach. Everything's gonna be brand new. But they fired Mike Vrabel to build around Will Levis. I'll take stupidest things I've heard for 500. Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. And the Titans were always a scrappy team. Look, this is just like Mike Tomlin getting fired. This is no different, in my opinion. Mike Tomlin, Mike Vrabel, I think you even asked at some point, it was like week 4, week 5, like, is Mike Vrabel safe? And I was like, oh, yeah, what? That's not even 100%. That's a dumb conversation to even have. And now here we are, and he's fired. And I don't know, man. I don't know how this could even happen to somebody that just won Coach of the Year. And he is going to go on to another place and be successful. But for Tennessee, I think they're going to be irrelevant for a long time now. Remember how long they were mediocre until Vrabel showed up? They weren't good. My entire childhood, they weren't good. They had their days with Steve McNair in the early 2000s and went to that Super Bowl and came a yard short. And then after that, nothing. I mean, they had some good years with Chris Johnson, one of the fastest running backs ever. Ran a 4.29.
That was it.
And that was it. Like, they're like, and to me, the last 5 years are some of Tennessee's best years since the early 2000s, right? Number one seed in the AFC, hosting playoff games. I just can't believe that they would be willing. To me, it feels like greed. It's like, you've been irrelevant for over a decade and a half. And then this guy comes in and takes Ryan Tannehill, by the way, takes him to a whole nother level. Miami would have kept him if he was anything like that in Miami.
Oh, yeah.
Takes this team to, I think, back-to-back playoffs 3 times. And then, last year they missed the playoffs. And then this year they come short. No shit. They have no talent on the team. There's nobody. Traylon Burks is not better than A.J. Brown. That never worked out. Trading A.J. Brown to Philly and drafting Traylon Burks like you guys won something. Like, no. They tried to do what Detroit did by sending DeAndre Swift to Philly and drafting Jahmyr Gibbs. The problem is Jahmyr Gibbs actually worked out for Detroit. Traylon Burks hasn't. And then they go with Malik Willis too at times. And he's literally the worst starting quarterback on a roster.
Terrible.
And it's just like the one thing you couldn't do in the position that Tennessee is in. The one thing you can't do is get rid of the one guy that's holding it all together, literally taking all of it right in the face.
You've won and have been the number 1 seed.
Yeah. And, you know, if you need a scapegoat, I'm here to say that you picked the wrong motherfucker, because he is not a scapegoat. He is the reason that he is a GOAT. Greatest of all time, maybe. No.
Yeah.
But no, he's up
for
there.
The Titans,
he's definitely, for the Titans, best coach in my lifetime for the Titans. And he's definitely, like, I would say a top 10 coach out of 32. And I just can't believe somebody would be willing to part ways with him to invest in Will Levis. None of it makes any sense at all. And it's actually really frustrating. I hate when people lose their jobs and they don't deserve to. And this totally feels like a situation where he got mistreated so badly by this team, man. That they're wrong. And I hope that, well, no, I'm not going to hope that they don't have success in the future, but a little bit I do, because I want them to be like, I want them to realize they made a mistake. Like, if you make a mistake and there's no consequences, you never really go back and revisit that decision. I hope Tennessee at least has enough seasons that are mediocre enough where they have to revisit this decision and admit that they screwed up, because Vrabel definitely didn't deserve to be fired, especially after knocking Jacksonville out of the playoffs with nothing to play for.
Yeah.
Nothing to play for.
Yeah.
What kind of coach has his team ready to knock out a team that could have went to an AFC championship game last year and they had everything to play for? And Mike Vrabel, his Tennessee Titans had nothing, absolutely nothing to play for. And they came out and they manhandled the Jaguars. They ran it down their throat. Yeah. They had their way with them. And that is that is what this head coach has always been about. Mike Vrabel is one of those tough, hard-nosed, and people are like, that's all he does though, is run the football. It's like, you got rid of his weapons. As soon as you got rid of A.J. Brown, guess what? Tennessee didn't make it to the playoffs anymore, because Treylon Burks, like I said, was not a replacement. They really, and then they grabbed DeAndre Hopkins, and it's just
that was like a season ticket move that they did.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
That's what that was.
Yeah. And Ryan Tannehill is definitely on the decline. What I would have thought would have been the right decision is to sit down with Mike Vrabel. And if you want a clean house. Everyone's gone, but we need you to stay. You're the one piece on the chessboard that we can't move forward without. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, the Titans front office didn't feel that way. And it sucks for him. It does.
This will go down in history as one of the worst coach firings for that organization. Let's move on to a few that did not really make ripples, but were still some coach firings, right? We had Ron Rivera, Arthur Smith get fired the day after the end of the regular season. And of course, our midseason firings, Frank Reich, Josh McDaniels, Brandon Staley. Those midseason firings, like that makes sense, right? Like your team, you've given them enough chances. You've given them, and Josh McDaniels, Frank Reich may be a bit of a stretch, but Staley for sure. You gave him a bunch of weapons. He was one of those analytical guys that came in, was going for it on fourth down a lot. And yes, he hit on some, but sometimes you're like, did you really need to? Could not get his team over the hump into the playoffs, into winning a playoff game, into very much success. Ron Rivera and Arthur Smith. Ron Rivera this last season, it seemed like everyone knew exactly what was going to happen to Ron Rivera at the end of the season. And you know what? You got the number 2 pick out of it for the Washington Redskins, keeping Ron Rivera there. You got Bieniemy there as well to kind of up the offense. You gave a look at Sam Howell. There were some good things that happened in Washington, but at the end of the day, you want to get rid of Ron Rivera, right? And that's exactly what happened. Arthur Smith, on the other hand, had a lot of bad coaching decisions. Maybe not the best coach to go with, had a ton of decisions during the season that honestly left us scratching our head. What was the one thing Kyle and I always agreed on with the Atlanta Falcons during the season? Why are we getting the ball to Kyle Pitts? Why are we getting the ball to Bijan? Why are we getting the ball to Drake London? They're top 3 offensive guys. Bijan fumbled, put him in the doghouse. He's not running the rest of the game. It's like, what? Dude, he's a rookie. This is exactly what rookies are supposed to do. This is how things, go for rookies sometimes. You're not going to have a great rookie year. It's not a CJ Stroud type, right? But did any of these really surprise you, Kyle? Anything really stand out? Josh McDaniels and again, Frank Reich didn't get a full year, but the way they were going and the way it seemed like they were going into the future didn't look right. And that's why they got fired. But did anything really surprise you with these 5 firings, 3 in the midseason, 2 the day after the regular season ended?
Not really, but
yeah,
I'll say you can lose games. You can't lose a locker room. And the way some of these teams started to play towards the end of the season, it's just a little bit lifeless, And once again, though, what are we talking about here? We're talking about Taylor Heineke and Desmond Ridder. Once again, a coach gets fired because, all those weapons. But now here's what's really messed up. That let's say Justin Fields gets traded to Atlanta, and then they bring in Belichick, right? And they're like, "Oh, we fixed it." It's like, no, you got a quarterback.
Yeah,
I mean, Arthur Smith ran for 200 yards on the 49ers' best running defense. He runs the football a lot, and it doesn't highlight the talent on the outside. And I can appreciate that, but it's just, I think it was just one of those where it's like, hey, we have to do this. But once again, it just seems like all of the coaches that get to stay have quarterbacks, and all the coaches that get fired are scapegoat for Desmond Ridder type performances or Malik Willis or Bailey Zappi. And I think it's unfortunate, but it's part of the game. If you don't have a quarterback, you probably only got 2 years. That's it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's even less than that. Now, I said you can't be lifeless on the field. Talking about Frank Reich, he literally, man, he's awful. I don't know what the deal is, but it's like, he does is lose, and then he leaves, and then teams play better. It's like, maybe he shouldn't be a head coach. Okay, I get that one. And then the other ones, it's like, I get it. It's business. You have to do it, but let's not act like this guy's wasting, Mahomes' prime or something like that. You can only squeeze so much juice out of Riddler, and then last year they went with Marcus Mariota. It's just what do you want? What do you want? Why don't you get this guy?
We're grasping at straws here, bro.
Exactly. Why don't you get this guy a quarterback and see if he underperforms with a quarterback? Maybe there's plays he would love to draw up, but he knows that if they lose the turnover battle, that they probably lose 98% if you're -3. So maybe he doesn't feel comfortable letting Riddler throw it outside to Kyle Pitts or take a deep shot to Drake London. These are all parts of the equation. But I do think Jim Harbaugh is going to end up coaching for these Commanders. Now, it wasn't surprising that the Commanders fired their head coach because they got a brand new owner. And the owner, it's just not good business to take over a team and then fire your head coach. And I know we just got a new owner, so I know how this process goes. And you pretty much, the writing's on the wall as soon as they get there.
Yeah.
But it's just good business to give that coach that was there when you got there, he was there before you, give him a chance to show you that he should stay. And most of the time they don't. And that's what happened with the head coach for the Commanders, Ron Rivera. But the reason I think Jim Harbaugh is going to come, and I think Arthur Smith is going to end up being the offensive coordinator for Jim Harbaugh, is because, or maybe even the defense coordinator. So I did a little deep dive on Arthur Smith, and he played football at UNC. And his senior year, he started doing quality control coaching. And then he got his first opportunity with the Commanders. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but Arthur Smith's father owns FedEx, the company, the whole thing.
Yeah. I think his brother's the CEO president or something like that.
Probably. I mean, his dad's the owner. So, I mean, the whole family's probably intertwined in some way, but he wanted to leave the Commanders because he felt like he was never going to get validation for his success because he plays in like FedEx Field is in Washington. Like his parents, you know what I mean? Like this is the company that's based out of DC, and they named the stadium that. And he was like, look, I got to go somewhere else to prove what I'm worth. Right. And I think by getting this head coaching job in Atlanta, he does. I feel like he got that monkey off his back, and now it's like he can return home with dignity, not like, oh, you're daddy's boy, you know? And that must suck because he even says like, I never grew up like he's billions and billions of dollars. And he says, I never felt like what my parents accomplished had anything to do with me. So he's a very humble person. So I think him coming back makes sense. And then for Jim Harbaugh, Family Guy, if you watch the national championship game, he's hugging his mom, he's hugging his dad, his brother's on the sideline before kickoff, very close to that family. So why not be the head coach of the Commanders with Josh Harris, I believe his name is, the new owner, multi-billionaire. He can give you $20+ million a year, and you get to live in Maryland and go to your brother's house on Friday night. And you know that that's a close family. A lot of people don't realize that you don't get out much, but DC and the Ravens, they play very close to each other. It's actually, I've been in the DC area. My ex-wife's aunt is from that area. They work in downtown. I've stayed there for extended time, and it's a very divided place. Like it's Commanders fans and it's Ravens fans, and they don't get along. So I think that would work out really nice for Jim because he's at an age where his parents are getting older. And he probably wants to spend time with them and be close to his family. And he doesn't have to be in the same division with his brother. Now, I didn't mean to like go into this whole thing, but I did a lot of research and I was excited to mention this.
Let's go
on the podcast. And I think Arthur Smith returning home could potentially be a move that Jim would make.
I love it. And yeah, I could see that happening. It's in terms of like, surprising of any of these head coaches being fired, kind of like you said, no, there's no surprise. It's just new ownership group. What, again, a combination of things, quarterback, what you were doing as a head coach, like these things happen, man. So I think there's a lot of very, a lot of job openings that are very seductive, right? Like you're going to be like, I do want to go to the Washington Commanders. We have a good pick in the draft. I want to go to the Patriots because we have a good pick in the draft. And there is already that sort of Patriot way that is sort of cemented into that team, into that culture. You still got Robert Kraft there as owner. The Chargers, tons of talent there that you can mold into your own vision and still like you can succeed there, right? Like you can absolutely succeed there.
They need a big splash hire because they're not even filling seats, man. And everybody, like the away team is always there. There's no reason that a team with dope ass uniforms in a dope ass city should be struggling to fill out the most badass stadium in the NFL. Clearly, there's something going awfully wrong there. And yeah, I do think that that's the reason the Chargers are going to hire big because they need to hire someone that's going to financially. I mean, they're going to have to move, I would imagine, at some point if they don't start making some money off the Chargers. And, the only thing good about the Chargers is their social media team. Check out their every year.
It's so good.
Yeah, they have such a great social media team. I hate it.
We need them. But they're so good.
There's just, I think there was a couple franchises that thought to themselves, drafting a franchise quarterback isn't going to be enough to make this city feel like a clean slate. We need a new head coach and a new quarterback. And I think that's kind of like if Belichick would have drafted a quarterback, it would have been like, oh, we're going to do Mac Jones all over again. But if, the Gerard Mayo drafts a new quarterback, it's like, ooh, what's in this store? We've never opened this store before. And it's exciting. And because Belichick was there so long, I think that they just wanted to find a way to get the city back into it, for, being proud and excited about Patriots football. Because make no mistake about it, they were the most boring team to watch probably out of every team in the NFL this year. And that's not good for TV. It's not good for football. Less primetime games. Yeah. Robert Kraft just taking money out of his pocket. Not that I could give a shit, but this is from their perspective of like, hey, maybe we need to not just fire a coach to get better, but we need to fire the coach to bring excitement to our city again. And I think that's something people aren't talking about as much, but it's a factor.
And Kyle?
Can't agree more.
Can't agree
more.
It's time for the little chives with Kyle. Kyle, what do you got for the little chives to put the topping on this 3-hour special of the Only Football Podcast?
Okay, 3 quick things. Number 1, Lions tight end Sam Laporta is actually questionable to play on Sunday. Ooh. He was listed as questionable for the Detroit's Super Wildcard Weekend game with the Rams. In Detroit's regular season finale, he hyperextended his knee and suffered a bone bruise. On Monday, Dan Campbell said that there was an outside chance his Pro Bowler could play, but Laporta was more optimistic on Thursday about his chances. Whether that optimism will lead to him being active is to be seen, but for now, there's a shot Laporta will be on the field for the Lions' first playoff game in 8 years. The other thing I wanted to mention, the Commanders, who we were just talking about, Washington right now is working to hire 49ers assistant general manager Adam Peters, which would be a huge hire. The 49ers, I mean, that one thing they do well is talent. Getting talent on their team, probably better than anybody in the NFL. So the Commanders are working on it right now. Peters arrives in Washington with firsthand knowledge of how to build a winner gained from his time spent working under John Lynch in San Francisco. Shout out John Lynch, where Lynch constructed a roster, and it goes on. We know, but this is a huge general manager. If they can seal the deal, this would be huge. And the last thing I wanted to say is the NFL right now. If you go to NFL.com and you go on news, on the third click, the third story
link,
NFL Super Wildcard Weekend bold predictions. Packers quarterback Jordan Love has found his groove with his cast of first and second year pass catchers, throwing 18 touchdown passes and just 1 pick over his last 8 games. He continues to roll in the postseason, tossing a career high 4 touchdown passes to outduel quarterback Dak Prescott. Exactly. I did not read this until now. This is exactly what I predicted. A shootout. Packers win 38-35.
Boo. Boo, 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 boo. Get that shit off your head, Kyle. I will walk to Nashville right now. You look like Cyclops from X-Men. And Crafty, the chive segment is supposed to be just a little bit. You know how you finish off a dish with some chives? That's how we finish off the Only Football Podcast episode, is with some chives.
It's
with Kyle.
If you will, the cherry on top.
The cherry on top.
You know, there's many ways to skin this cat, but the addition, the late addition, the final pizzazz, the looks, the
fat lady sings.
The way you feel when those chives are sprinkled onto your plate. Completion.
Completion.
That's what it is.
Oh, well, real quick, want to thank all you guys for tuning in today. We ran for 3 hours because the Super Wildcard Weekend is totally worth talking about. This last week with the coaches firing and mutual part of ways was totally worth talking about. And I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of the Only Football Podcast, because I will say, Kyle, I think you and I really enjoyed giving this episode, because this was an awesome episode to talk about. The emotion from us, the predictions. Yeah, no, it's
oh shit.
It doesn't feel like it because that's the one thing Kyle and I love is football.
Talking about football, and especially everything we talked about is important. There's no more Saints Panthers. There's no more Saints Panthers. We don't have to be like, all right, Bryce Young, can he muster up that excitement? No, these games are exciting all on their own.
It is the best 14 teams in the league going at it for the ultimate and the most important game in sports across the world, the Super Bowl, which, God, I can't even think that far without my brain just being like, what? You know, it's crazy. So again, thank you guys for tuning in.
Top 5, no debating. Top 5.
He did it. Kyle did it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, for commenting. We appreciate all the comments, all the insight from KC, Crafty, Bill. We had Mythic in here. We had Liam in here. We had Nick in here. Thank you guys so much for everything you guys do to support this channel, The Only Football Podcast. We're over 500 subs. We're getting close to that super chat stuff. We're getting reviewed. We're going to set stuff up. This summer, this playoffs, everything until The Only Football Season 3 is going to be awesome. And then The Only Football Podcast Season 3 is going to be even better. But again, all because of you guys and what you do for the channel, tuning in, commenting, and everything. So we thank you guys for everything you guys do for this channel. And Kyle, another great episode in the books. Always a good time.
Always a good time. Can't wait to see you all tomorrow for playoff football. We're going to wake up tomorrow.
Let's go.
And the first thing I'm going to say is playoffs.
Everybody, thank you again for tuning in, and we will see you tomorrow for all of our Super Wild Card Weekend live streams. Kyle, I'll see you tomorrow, brother.
See ya.